Kamran Pasha joins us again this morning on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. It's Friday morning once again here in YouTube land. Hope everybody's having a great day heading into the weekend. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is, where you is. I'm Tom Connors. With me as always is the boss man, Andre. How you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I am good, and I'm very excited for today's show, which I think is going to be a real doozy.
That's right, indeed. We have the one, the only filmmaker, writer. You add your whatever title you want to here, Kamran.
Well, I can add one, MBA, which means that Kamran is instantly far more qualified than most of the people in Hollywood.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. I always love being on Midnight's Edge. And what I've loved about it, and particularly in the last few times we've come on, is that I'm beginning to look like Nostradamus. I say things on your show and then they come true. And it's really fun. And
exactly.
So I'm flowing with it. I'll take it.
Yeah. No, because to those that don't know what's going on, well, actually, before we get into what's going on, we have some audience joining us. We have a few super chats. We have who says, "Hi, gents. Hello, everyone." And Fear is the Mind Killer. I love that name. Just became a new YouTube member. Welcome. Hope you will enjoy the exclusive content. And we have many others here in the chat joining us. We have Cash Kester, who says, "Hail to all." We have Imogen Cole. And we have Karen Downey, Star Wars news. Yes, indeed, there will be Star Wars news. We have Ilvriani Makara, greetings. Steph is here joining us. And we have Emperor Billy Ritchie and many others. So thank you, every single one, for joining us. Stephen Otten is here, Trusted Wrench, alongside Natasha, who's also here. So yeah, it's a pleasure to see all of you here. We'll go through a couple of super chats, but before then, what we're talking about today, just to give you a quick tease. Now, Kamran has been here with us before, basically documenting the demise of Lucasfilm in its current form, which, from my analysis and my just external observation, has to be one of the single worst run studios / companies / subdivisions in the history of Hollywood. I mean, how can you take basically what was $1 billion property and turn it into $1 million property? Because face it, Rise of Skywalker just barely was able to crawl past the finishing line to that $1 billion, and it was beaten by the R-rated Joker. Who would have thought that? Joker beat Rise of Skywalker at the box office. Of course, then you have The Mandalorian, that was made under the purview of Jon Favreau, bring fans back again and create some much-needed enthusiasm, but they were able to basically make that evaporate, the Kennedy faction. So good going. And what we get instead will be High Republic. And everyone is such huge fans of Geo the Rock and his asexual companion and all of that jazz. So good going. And of course, we have then here with Kamran, we've been documenting some articles that have been put out in Variety, that have been putting out in Forbes, to see what's really going on behind the scenes. And earlier this week, they must have gotten desperate, because now they resorted to putting out a leak on Reddit. And this wasn't some random servant. This was a leak from a Lucasfilm plant. And we are going to get into that in detail today, breaking it all down with Kamran Pasha. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So please hit that like. Please help share the stream, because as many of you are aware, this platform doesn't always send notifications. And while you help us out with that, we're going to deal with a couple of super chats before we get into the main story. What I can bring up on screen right now is from the importer, who says, "Hey everyone, just finished binge watching my Blu-ray of the Harley Quinn cartoon. It's like South Park meets DC. Funniest thing I've seen in a while." And yeah, I've actually heard good things about that.
I've seen a little bit of it, and it's really good.
From what I've seen, it is cool. Apart from one little thing where the creators saw fit to make fun of all the fans, where they basically had two guys sitting in a couch, and they basically acted kind of like Beavis and Butthead, and one of them had a "Release the Snyder Cut" T-shirt on him. This was before AT&T stepped in and mandated the Snyder Cut be released, which only goes to show that the people at Warner hold the people that wanted the Snyder Cut beneath contempt. And then the other guy, he had the Last Jedi is not canon T-shirt on him. Let's see if we can.
Well,
there we go.
And I'll tell you what, you can get those shirts in our T-shirt store right now.
Yes, because we made them. They wanted to mock us, so we mocked them right back, and we made those shirts. So if you head down to the description, you will find the link to that shirt. The Last Jedi is not canon, in that font, in that color, and everything. So go and show them how much we appreciate being made fun of. And again, look at this, "Release the Snyder Cut." This was published shortly before AT&T mandated they actually do that, so it didn't work out too well for them. Joel Rice wonders, what show is this? Well, this is the animated Harley Quinn show, which apart from this one thing, apparently is quite good. I've only heard good things about it myself. There you have the shirt. So go and order that in the description below, and make sure to wear it next time you actually go to a Star Wars convention. Moving on with a couple of super chats. NJ Scoundrel says, "I really enjoy listening to Kamran's enlightening info about Hollywood and miss him greatly on Twitter. Didn't always agree with him, but really respect his opinion and knowledge." We're going to get into Twitter and everything like that very, very soon. So just brace yourself. Then we had Goskar Farlat, who says for $30. Well, thank you so much. That really helps out keeping the lights on. And he says, "Yep, those leaks and the JJ cut feels like a forced movement. I feel like they're trying to get a redo on 9 to try to fix everything. OFC Kamran called KK lackeys getting sacrificed for it while trying to absolve KK of it." Very glad that you have made that observation. Kamran Pasha is rapidly becoming a Nostradamus in these matters, because you did see this coming.
And I suffered from it, and we're going to talk about that. Calling out the lackeys is why I'm not on Twitter anymore, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we will. So, yeah, that'll be fun. And Crazy Cat Guy sent us a super sticker, so thank you for that. Then let's see what more we can bring up on screen. Stephen Otten says, "Hail Andre, Tom, Kamran, Wrenches, and everyone in the chat. This will all be covered in my new online class, How Not to Trilogy 101. Absolutely. So this will all be on the test. Make sure to take notes. And those are the ones that I can bring up on screen, but there are more that came before that I no longer can come up on screen. And Tom has requested that I call them classic super chats. So let's do that and bring up the classics. Mm-hmm. First one today is our good friend Stephanie Yanisek's Smuggler's Cantina, who says, "The desperation to blame everybody else when they all did a lousy job." Indeed. Luke says, "Hail Lobster." KitKat sent us a salt super sticker, like a grain, take stuff with a grain of salt. And Dark King says they'd do better planting fake leaks. Congo. Darius Münchhausen is ready with his popcorn super sticker. And Spider Unlimited says for $9.99, thank you so much. Happy Friday, all. Mats Mikkelsen, cast in Indy 5. He's one of my favorite actors and chooses roles wisely. I don't know what to think about this. He's the second best Hannibal, by the way. Yeah, I will say that Mats Mikkelsen is one of my favorites too. He was a seriously great Hannibal. His personal favorite performance of mine is in the Danish movie Men and Chicken. So make sure to seek that one out.
I did lose a lot of respect for him, though, after taking on the part after Warner Brothers shit can.
I was about to say, I don't think that he is the one doing all this. If he is, then that says very badly about his character. I think it's more so his agent, and his agent has had him take on some extremely shitty things, like replacing Johnny Depp and then even being associated with this project here at all. Kamran, do you think it's Mats Mikkelsen making these casting decisions, or are they being made for him?
I mean, in my experience, all the way to the very, very top of actors, unless maybe you're Tom Hanks, they tend to defer to their agents. I mean, this is, the thing is this: actors, once if they're pushed out of the system, it's very hard to get back in, right? A writer can, and look, I'm a living example of that. I can be pushed out of the system, right? But I can create something that suddenly people want again, a pilot or screenplay or whatever. And even if they don't like me, they want the underlying material, and I can be back in the system. An actor who loses favor within the system, he doesn't have a way back in, right? And so most actors largely rely on their representatives. Not a lot of them will contradict their representatives on career decisions. And that doesn't just go for actors. I know Oscar-winning directors who have, walked away from projects for fear of what their agents would say, right? I mean, I know them personally. So it's, agents have a tremendous amount of power, because how Hollywood works is that it is all about connection and information. And artists individually don't have all of the connections. Even with YouTube and Twitter and all that stuff, they don't have the connection where it matters, which is within the system. They're literally the lifeblood of the system, right? And the Writers Guild recently attempted to have a major fight with the agents, which they claim they have won, but it was a very difficult and challenging thing for us to go against the actual lifeblood of the system. And that's with the writers, who actually have a way to survive even without representatives, whereas most other artists don't.
All right, so there you go. Maybe not hold Mats Mikkelsen himself too responsible then. He's probably doing what his agents tell him to. I think that his agent has given him some really shitty projects. I'm going to do a couple of more super chats before we get into
fucking agent.
Yeah, into the main story of today, which is going to be real exciting. Al Adolfson says for $5, Andre, have you seen Atlantic Crossing regarding Norwegian royalty and World War II? On PBS, 90% spoken Norwegian. Made my sister cry as she and mum were there in Norway. I have not seen that, but I will now that you have pointed it out to me. So thanks for the tip. And then we had a super sticker from John Person of a little pear-shaped guy. And Judah Khan says, Hail Andre, Tom, and Kamran Pasha. I look forward to listening to your morning shows. It helps me get through the workday. Thanks for the great content. Well, thank you for listening. And yeah, we have a great one for you today.
We have over 1,000 people watching, which is great right now.
Yes. So yeah, thank you so much for that. So be sure to hit like and help share, because this one is going to be a real doozy. Before we move on, a couple more super chats. Lord Trinan says for $20. Thank you so much. Hail Midnight's Edge and welcome back, Kamran. Well, I think this leak came from the JJ camp instead of KK's. They both share the same mindset. They must think we're really stupid to fall for a leak reeking of as much BS as this. Yeah, hold that thought, because we'll get into that.
What's funny is how much BS I don't think is in there, but we'll get to that, like you said. So.
Yeah, we'll get into that. And Samoan Pirate says, this leak seems about as corporate as a Target/Walmart Black Friday leak from back in the day. And then we have Crazy Cat Guy, who sent us a Kitty Super sticker, and Goskar. We got that one already, and NJ Scoundrels, we got that one too. And Stephen Otten said if Cagney and Bogut were still around, Warners wouldn't be talking smack about fans in reference to that shirt. No, absolutely. Unfortunately, the producers and executives of their particular brand aren't with us anymore. If there are any left in Hollywood, they certainly are not in the big studio system. But with that, let us now get into the main story of today. To recap, like not the last time, but like in the last 2-3 times we had Kamran on, we did a breakdown of an article in Forbes, where Bob Chapek was called out, and this is something that would force him to act. Now, I heard from my sources that the video that we put out with Kamran then hit like a bombshell within Lucasfilm. It had everyone in the Kennedy faction nervous, including Kathleen Kennedy herself, because like, oh shit, this is not what they had in mind. Yes, this article right here, the one where Forbes, so not like little bullshit industry papers like the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, but freaking Forbes magazine, says, headline, Disney's firing of Gina Carano is confusing and hypocritical, lacking sound management. And they put Bob Chapek on blast, but Bob Chapek, he knows who's the real culprit of this. And this is something that will force him to act, pushes his back against the wall. That's going to make the Kennedy faction really desperate. It's been mostly quiet of them since then, but a few days back there was a leak on Reddit. Tom, can you bring that Reddit leak up on screen so everyone can see it? Yes, here we go. Where we then have a new anonymous leaker who then posts under the headline, what happened with the Disney sequel trilogy and the changes to episode 9. The leaker first begins by saying that this individual has been working on all of the Disney-era Star Wars movies, but isn't really present so much there today. But of course can't say who they are or anything, but has no direct involvement. But despite not having any direct involvement, goes very, very far in clearing Kathleen Kennedy of all wrongdoing, making it very clear that there are no factions, it's all good, there's no strife, it's just like some minor disagreement. And it's mostly Pablo Hidalgo who is the one behind that disagreement. Kathleen Kennedy, she's cool, she doesn't do anything, she has a great working relationship with Jon Favreau, and she wants him to take over. Yeah, right, is what I say to that. And then the leaker goes on to say much about what happened with the rise of Skywalker. Again, this is mostly stuff that we knew already, because we've had numerous leaks from Jedi Praxis, among others, that said pretty much exactly the same thing. So there's nothing new for the main body of this leak. The only thing that is new is that J.J. Abrams, he is freaking awesome. And there's a 4-hour Abrams cut. And then, while it isn't stated explicitly, it's kind of implied that you should absolutely try to get that released. Bob Chapek, he's cheap. He doesn't want to release it. But maybe if you get like that moving on Twitter is the implication. We did a video on this already, and what we pointed out were the main takeaways that signals that this isn't a genuine leak from a dissatisfied working bee, as we've seen so many times before, but something that's orchestrated is one. It really exonerates Kathleen Kennedy of any and all wrongdoing. The only one that's singled out as like the Pablo Hidalgo, like this guy, he's up to no good. And then it also exonerates J.J. Abrams. He is freaking awesome, and he did a great job with Rise of Skywalker, and it's a shame that that cheap bastard Bob Chapek won't release his 4-hour cut. That is the takeaway of this leak, as we posted in our video of yesterday. Kamran, you've seen this leak. What's your response to it?
Well, my response is when I saw this leak, I started laughing. I started laughing, sort of my villain laugh, because, you know, as we talked about, I was booted off Twitter after I posted several very direct tweets with hashtag Lucasfilm. So I know the Lucasfilm employees who have nothing better to do, who have been on Twitter, saw them. And then shortly thereafter, I was pulled from Twitter and I remain off. It's been almost a month and a half now, and I don't know that I'll ever get back on. And the tweets that I sent were predicting exactly this phenomenon that we're watching here. I said what's going to happen is that Kathleen Kennedy, and I said this to the Lucasfilm employees who are likely watching this video as well, and I'll say this to them again now, that Kathleen Kennedy is a survivor. She's within the system. She's a queen within the system. You are pawns. And when it comes time for her to exit, she will burn all of you down to protect her relationships and her reputation. And so you're all next. And those are the tweets that I sent out. And I said also that once this is over, your careers are finished, right? Because powerful people, I'm not that powerful. Powerful people have said to me, I will never work with any of these Lucasfilm clowns after what they did to my friend, like Colin Trevorrow and all these people. They mess with my friend, they mess with the wrong person, right? And so these are people that know who these Lucasfilm people are, and that resume is not going to help them. And I posted those things, and the next day my Twitter was pulled after being on there for over 10 years. You know, nothing else I said politically or socially or anything else, or posting pictures of pretty women, pulled it. That I was pulled right after I did that. So when this Reddit article came out, I laughed because this is exactly what I predicted was happening, which is the Kathleen Kennedy camp. And at this point, it is Ms. Kennedy herself, because she's throwing everyone else under the bus. The Kathleen Kennedy camp is now distancing itself from Lucasfilm and naming other people as scapegoats, like Pablo Hidalgo, who is a powerless fool who has been talking for all of this time, you know, on behalf of Ms. Kennedy, and she's never cared about him, never respected him. And now we're getting public refutation of him in defense of Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, right? And that is the power structure now solidifying against the people that matter to it, and then sacrificing all of the pawns exactly as I predicted. So Mr. Hidalgo, who is likely watching this, or his friends who are watching this, this is what I warned. This is what you guys did when pulling me off of Twitter, right? It's happening now. You know, Kathleen Kennedy has figured out over the past several weeks that the game is over, that Jon Favreau is essentially going to win this, right? So whatever little revenge she got out of Gina Carano's firing and all this other stuff, it ultimately is going to fizzle out, and she's going to move on. And so now is the time to change the narrative to make her the hero. And even though we'll talk about why this doesn't make her sound heroic, because it's not a well thought out PR move. None of this has been well thought out. But the poorly thought out PR move is setting out this leak, right, which completely exonerates Kathleen Kennedy, which is delusional stuff. I have friends who have said to me that major directors, I won't name them, but we all know who they are, the ones that were fired by Ms. Kennedy, despise her. They despise her on a very deep, visceral, and personal level. They took their firing very personally, and they're too classy to come out right and say it, right? But there's a lot of knives out from very powerful people. And so this is her realizing, okay, it looks like my tenure is actually up. I think this is pretty much the last leg of it. So now I've got to protect my reputation. And all these dumb clowns that did whatever I said, hoping that it would advance their careers, I'm going to burn all of them down because they never mattered, and you don't matter. And so pushing me off Twitter achieved nothing. Within 1 month of pushing me off Twitter for saying she's going to sacrifice you clowns, you clowns are getting sacrificed. And this is just the beginning. This is the beginning of a narrative where Kathleen Kennedy will present herself to the world as someone who is blameless, as someone who is heroic, and ultimately it was these dumb, immature Lucasfilm ideologues that pushed the franchise away from her brilliant vision. Right, that's going to be the final story, and the thing that I warned you about is that your resume, once Lucasfilm goes through its clean out once she leaves, hopefully this year, which I believe it'll probably be this year. Once it goes through the red wedding moment when all of you are taken out, your careers are finished, right? Because she's setting you up for being finished. Right? You don't have any friends from her enemy side, which is a large portion of this town, and now the friends you thought you had, who thought were going to be impressed by you supporting a strong woman and all whatever delusional things that you think we're in, moment in history that you think we're in right now, you're about to learn what the Jacobins learned during the French Revolution, is that it all turns against the fanatics, right? As Robespierre, who was the great spokesman for the French Revolution, got thousands of people guillotined, ended up being guillotined himself. That day is now coming, right? And this is exactly what I warned you. And you didn't have the wisdom to align yourself with Jon Favreau, who was clearly going to win this fight, because your hearts have never been in Star Wars. Your hearts have been in some weirdo ideological thing that you got from bad upbringing from your parents, from bad teaching in your colleges, whatever your psychological problems are. This was the end result of this, is that you failed. And now she's sacrificing you. And I laughed so hard last night, and I posted on Midnight's Edge video, and I think it has over 500 likes and 70 comments in support of it, that this was what I predicted. So you kicked me off Twitter for nothing. Eventually I'll find a way back on Twitter, right? But your careers are done.
Yeah. So on that note, for that video, which was posted less than 24 hours ago, I can actually share some stats on that, just to say it. That video has nigh on 50,000 views. That is in less than 24 hours, and it has more than 1,000 comments. Because we have great engagement. So for most videos, we tend to get more than 1,000 comments when there's like an exciting topic like this. So great engagement, and word is absolutely out there, and I don't see like anyone excited about anything coming from Lucasfilm. But there's one thing that before we start breaking down this leak in its minutia, and that is, no, actually, let's begin with breaking down the leak, and we'll get to it. What this leak says is we're going through like the bull crap with the intro, can't say who he is, yada yada yada. That's all fair and well. That would be the case in a genuine leak as well. Then it says, regarding Lucasfilm, there has never been a cultural civil war at Lucasfilm. Nevertheless, a disagreement on what direction to take the franchise has always been a recurring problem. And then, certain members of the Lucasfilm story group, Pablo, decided to see Star Wars resemble a D&D campaign, more aesthetic, less narrative. Others, Favreau and Filoni, are pushing for a more traditional approach. There isn't some war between Katee and Favreau. They are on rather pleasant terms.
Which is funny, minus that last part, is everything we've been reporting for the last few years. Like, that's what's funny, is there's no civil war, but all these things that have been consisting of this civil war are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but move on. I just want to go through the rest here.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I actually interrupt for 1 second? I actually want to make a
go
comment.
for it.
I want to make a comment because, again, this is such a badly written PR thing. They're referencing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry. I know there's Dungeons and Dragons followers on this. I have friends of mine who still play the game, but that ain't exactly a huge part of cultural reference in 2021 today, right? So these are people that don't even know. This is almost like someone executive, for a powerful person from the the 80s who doesn't know what's hip right now.
Yeah, and not only that, what I think is interesting is that he highlights Pablo Hidalgo, who we have previously been told he's just a continuity guy. He has no real power or anything like that. But what he did is that he stepped his foot in his mouth during the Luke Skywalker moment, when he then publicly humiliated Star Wars theory after he had shared his story about how Luke Skywalker got him through chemotherapy and all of that nastiness. And he found strength in that. And he shed tears like so many others at Luke Skywalker coming back. And Pablo Hidalgo was the one who tweeted, "Emotions are not for sharing." And that created a huge backlash right away, because it was so disrespectful. It was against Star Wars theory of everyone. I mean, if it had been us, or if it had been Jeremy of Geeks and Gamers or something, that would have been one thing. But it was Star Wars theory who actually had been, shall we say, not their harshest critic. That was the guy that Pablo Hidalgo chose to go after. And I'm sure that he made his way to the top of many people's shit list within the Disney Corporation that day. And we've also heard from our sources that he really is a shitstirrer behind the scenes. And he is someone that he has distinguished himself among the people in the Favreau faction in the worst possible way. Could this play into why he is the pawn that's being singled out for sacrifice here?
He's Grima Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. I mean, he's this guy who's trying to rise up by wherever he thinks the power is, right? And he ends up being, completely destroyed by the very thing that he sought after. I mean, this clown, and I'm going to be rude because these Lucasfilm guys came after me, right? And now I'm done with all of them, right? And so this clown, sucked up to George Lucas, got himself into this system. The moment Lucas was out, he betrayed Lucas, right? Because he was a Lucas protege, right? And at least Filoni was a protege and went along with the politics of it, but never gave up Lucas's vision. This guy, the alleged continuity guy, immediately jumped onto whatever he thought was the political track that was going to advance his career, rather than doing his job, which was to protect the continuity of Star Wars, right? And he has never wavered from that political thing. So this is exactly what he deserves, right? Which is Grima Wormtongue treatment by his Saruman. And the funny thing is, I was kicked off of Twitter. The last tweet that I did right after I made my Lucasfilm comment, actually my last Lucasfilm comment, was I compared the situation with Gina Carano and what was happening to Lord of the Rings. What was happening at the time was Amber Heard, who everyone knows I'm not a fan of or supporter of. Amber Heard has started getting a lot of negative press that was been coming out of at least the American trial, which is more looking into what she actually did rather than the UK trial, which was more political, right? But the American trial, the libel trial that Johnny Depp has put out, Amber Heard was getting a lot of bad press. And I said, look, if the system is now being able to talk about Amber Heard, she's Saruman to Sauron, which is, I compared Kathleen Kennedy to Sauron. So once Saruman goes, right, once the minion of the woke white woman, right, which is what this is all about, protecting the woke white woman of Hollywood, right? Amber Heard was the Saruman of that, and Kathleen Kennedy is the Sauron of that. And so I said, if they're going after Saruman, they're going to go after Sauron next. That was when I was pulled. And later, I believe it was on Doomcock's channel. Within a week, Doomcock did a thing with one of his sources saying how Jon Favreau allegedly calls Kathleen Kennedy the Eye of Sauron privately. And so when I made this comment, I think someone Lucasfilm said, "Oh, I think this guy's actually really working with Favreau, and we got to end this." And boom, I was out after that comment, right? And so it is very funny to me to watch Grima Wormtongue here get what he deserves.
Absolutely. And to this claim that there is no cultural civil war within Lucasfilm, and Favreau and Kennedy, they actually have a really good working relationship. Now, in our video, we contrasted that with this video clip of Kennedy interrupting Favreau mid-sentence, and him running completely over her and like taking things back on course as the one adult in the room. I think like that said everything about the relationship between them. But what do you feel about like this leak? That there's no kind of cultural civil war, just a minor disagreement about how Dungeons and Dragons to make this courtesy of good Grima Pablo. What's your comment on that whole assertion?
I'm gonna quote a friend of mine who might be watching right now. He's a friend of mine who's a young screenwriter here in LA who I've been mentoring a little bit. He's a brilliant guy named Isaac Fisher. So Isaac, if you're watching, this is a shout out to you. He sent me this text right now. He said the problem with these people is they don't know how to make believable PR scams. Right? They don't know how to. This is a not believable thing. You know, it is clearly obvious that there is a cultural war going on because of what we're witnessing with Jon Favreau's version of Star Wars, which people are loving, versus the this High Republic garbage that nobody's buying, that's being mocked, right? And so it's obvious on the consumer end that there's two visions going on here. They are incompatible visions. One is idiotic, and one is a continuation of George Lucas, which is quite inspiring, right? And Gina Carano's firing reveals at least some tension between these two visions. So anyone claiming that is self-evidently lying. And so putting that out there is badly done PR, as Isaac Fisher said. It's incompetence. You have to at least present some truth to it. And this is so laughable. And that's just objectively. Now that I talk from my friends in the industry, like, 'cause I was the one who, I think on was Jeremy's channel, that I revealed that a friend of mine who is within Favreau's inner circle, he's worked on his crew on the last several projects, and like high level crew guy, and that's as far as I'm willing to say who he is, said to me personally before all this lockdown stuff, he was one of the last people I had coffee with, and he's not invested in Star Wars. He's invested in Jon Favreau, who's his friend and his mentor, right? And he said to me, Favreau thinks this is all crap, right? What they're doing with Star Wars. He was horrified by by Last Jedi, and he reached out to these people saying, "Look, let me fix this for you." I know for a fact that this is one of the most trustworthy, honorable people that I've met in the industry, and for him to just lay that out there, he's not some fanatical Star Wars fan. He's just laying out what his friend said to him, so I know for a fact that Mr. Favreau was not satisfied with the other vision of Star Wars. And I do believe he's diplomatic and wise. And unlike me, who Lucasfilm proudly pronounced, well, this guy was fired from Disney. Yeah, I was fired from Disney because I speak the truth, as you can all see here, right? Mr. Favreau is smarter than that. He speaks truth in sophisticated ways rather than just straightforwardly, right? And so he's a political survivor. But we can all see in the video the body language of what happened there, politically, if I was actually working for Kathleen Kennedy, I would never take the center stage of that table. And the moment she started talking, I would shut up. I mean, I worked in Hollywood. The person in the room who's in charge speaks, and everyone else, listens. And we could see the body language of that table that Favreau felt that he was in charge. And when Ms. Kennedy spoke up, despite all of his political savvy, his human nature asserted itself. He's like, all right, I don't need this person interrupting my event here, so I'm going to take back control. That was just human nature and assert itself. We all saw it. It's on video, and from Doomcock's latest video and sources, I believe it. That was the moment where she lost it. She said, "This guy has publicly, essentially, asserted himself as the person in charge of the round table, and I'm supposed to be in charge, right?" And I can imagine that's when she went ballistic on him, right? And that was a human nature slip. But it reveals the truth. So anyone who believes that there's no bad blood between them, especially after the firing of Gina Carano, who was his protege, someone that he specifically wrote the character of Cara Dune for, is delusional, and no one believes that. So putting this kind of nonsense out is just poorly done PR.
Indeed. On that note, hail, Rob. Greetings. Welcome.
Speaking of poorly done PR, hi everybody. How's it going? Kamran Pasha, how's it going, buddy?
It's good to see you. Welcome.
Always great when you get such great insights. Tom, did they change StreamYard again? I'm noticing some different stuff.
Lord knows. Here's the funny thing about a lot of this. Is what I said is funny is outside of the first part with, there's never been a cultural civil war. Everything here rings pretty true to what we've heard, even to the point where, look, and I'm not sticking up for Kathleen Kennedy, but I've heard from a couple different sources that she's more or less like a satellite mother than a helicopter parent.
Mm-hmm.
to where she really is kind of unaware of a lot of what Pablo Hidalgo is doing behind the scenes with his little minion monkeys. And it just could very well be that, their political ideologies align, so it doesn't bother her until now when she's realizing, wait a minute, especially right after the whole Oscar video. I think if anything, that was probably the thing that really brought to her attention that people don't like me. Like, I mean, that's the thing. And I'm sure you can kind of reiterate on this a little bit more, but, because these people live in a bubble and they're completely unaware of what the real world kind of thinks of them. And because they're so used to having people around them constantly kissing their ass. And I'm assuming Queen Katee has people up her ass constantly kissing it. The
whole system has been kissing her. It's been kissing her butt for decades, right? Because she's been taking. I mean, the strong woman of Hollywood is a narrative going back to Indiana Jones, right? This ain't new, right? She's been held up as the powerful female producer of the industry for going back 40 years, and this is just the ultimate rise to her position of I'm continuing the George Lucas, legacy, and as people suggested, she wants to claim it was always her legacy. So she's never heard the truth. I've worked on TV shows where the showrunner, I will give this example. I worked on a TV show, and I won't name the showrunner, where an incident happened on the set that we all heard about immediately, and 6 months later, like a negative incident, 6 months later, the showrunner came into the office and was just grumbling and saying, I heard this happened like 6 months ago. Wow. We're like, how do you not know that this happened? How did I, a peon on this show, know that this happened 6 months ago? How do you not know this? How was this? We all literally, you saw the body language of everyone in the writer's room. They all looked away like, because we all knew the boss didn't know what was going on. She was being shielded. She was being shielded from this. Yeah. Right.
Well, and the other thing that I find interesting is this individual, where a lot of these claims we saw, what was it, 2 years ago or a year ago that came to Reddit, same kind of thing.
It was a while ago,
Praxis or whatever, which he does confirm in here were true, which is also funny.
But no, actually, I don't think that's funny at all. I think that's basically someone here is deciding, like, okay, look, we're going to try something new. We're going to try to salvage our reputation, and instead of going through our usual friends in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety, or even Scott Mendelson in Variety, we're going to, in Forbes, we're going to try something new here. Like, we have all of these freaking Reddit leaks and everything, and they're like a big fucking pain in our ass. So let's try to make one of our own. Now, here are the things that we want to put out there, and to make this legit, we're just going to rephrase all of this other stuff, which we know has leaked already, and we're going to put that out there. And that way we're going to seem so credible, because people are going to recognize, oh, I've seen that before. This is the same. I heard this. This is the same that those reports. So I think that's basically just them saying what's already being out there, just putting it in a slightly different way. That's my take on that.
Yeah, and it could very well be, but go ahead, Cameron.
I want to say there's a tell right here. And I'm going to reference my good friend Isaac Fisher, right, who may or may not be watching right now, but I'm going to reference it. He said this to me, and he was right. The tell is that there's not a single mistake that Kennedy made. In order to make this a believable manipulation through PR, you have to acknowledge a few mistakes, right? Yes, she's a detached leader. We all knew that. So that's not really a mistake. That's just her giving freedom to her children. It's like, no, I made a strategic mistake. The way you cover your butt is to say, I did this wrong, but I did all this other stuff right? Even if that's not true, but you do it. And what we have seen from the pathology that we have seen in the trilogy of the sequel trilogy is that Rey seems to be a reflection of Miss Kennedy's self-image, right? Idealized self-image.
Yeah, self-inception.
She makes no mistakes. She makes no. She has no flaws. She makes no errors. This is how she sees herself. So this is what we're seeing in Reddit. There is no flaw or error here. So this is coming. This is not coming from some minion. This is coming from her office, because this is how she sees herself.
Well, I think this is more so somebody from JJ's side of things. Go ahead, Rob.
We'll talk about that.
But I was saying there's twofold. I pointed out, actually, one thing in our latest video, I made sure, I'm like, there's a little something missing. I pointed out there's no reference here to the High Republic. There's no reference here to firing Gina Carano. There's no reference here to any of the.
Funny you mentioned that, because that was the original point I was trying to get to before we got sidetracked. Was that
no mention of Solo, a Star Wars story, and firing Lord and Miller.
Well, here's the thing I was going to point
make your
out.
point. Yes.
Was that this individual
Sorry,
says
Tom.
they've only worked on the main trilogy. They haven't worked on anything else. So how the fuck do they know what the fuck has happened in the last 2 years there? How do they know that Favreau and Katee are getting along now? Because when this individual was there, the only thing that was going on was Mandalorian had just dropped. So they had shot the first season and they were probably in the midst of shooting season 2. So at that point, nothing had really been happening yet, and it was just the beginning of all the shit with Gina Carano. And again, going off of what Rob just said, doesn't mention anything about Solo. Well, there we know. She wasn't paying attention to what was going on until 88 days until shit was going bad, and then she decides, oh, I'm going to switch out the director now, take away these guys and throw in Ron Howard. And it's consistent. Same thing with The Mandalorian. Is like, oh, we got Solo, we've got all these scripts. Oh wait, Mandalorian drops. This show's just like our Obi-Wan. I mean, this show's just like the Mandalorian. Maybe we got to change shit after the show's already fucking out. And of course, that's what I've been hearing. Is she was so concentrated on the trilogy and self-inserting herself into the trilogy and making sure that, because that was the whole thing we kept hearing, was at the detriment of the story itself. It was consistently, it has to be Rey everywhere, to the point where she was even saying, get Luke Skywalker out of there. And that was kind of what we were hearing with Trevorrow, where he kind of threw up his hands. And even here, it even says that JJ wanted Luke Skywalker alive for the third film. So again, tell me where there isn't this argument or Cold War or Civil War going on between the official management and everybody she's fucking working with, because we've had nothing but horror stories come out of every goddamn thing she's worked on except for one fucking movie. And that's it. The only movie that everybody unanimously hates. Just fucking hates. So again, I reiterate, what the fuck is going on here? And why hasn't anybody stepped in and said, timeout, which they did, which was Bob Iger, but even he's kind of non-existent all of a sudden. Where the fuck is he?
Well, Bob Iger wants to run for president. We all know that. I mean, so he's trying to keep his nose as clean as possible. But I was saying though, Cameron, though, from day one, after I saw The Mandalorian, and when I heard that it was set just like a few years after Return of the Jedi, I said, you know what, something's up here, because John Favreau is saying, no, don't pay attention to that stuff. This is what you want to watch right here. This is your Star Wars, not this other crap.
No, if anything, all this does is confirm that there's been nothing but butting heads since day one.
Well, I want to actually build on something that, and we can have this debate here, Tom, about whether this is coming from Kathleen Kennedy's camp or J.J. Abrams' camp. Let me at least make the case why I believe it is coming from Kathleen Kennedy's camp and why it looks like it could come from. I'm going to make the case. I
agree with that, but Kamran, I want you to develop that really fully and in detail. Okay. So before you do that, that's not a tiny thing. That's a huge thing, actually. Yes. Okay. And before we get into that huge thing, I want to get caught up on some super chats and some of the observations from you in the audience. Then we're gonna dig into the JJ connection in here, and that's the real doozy. Silver Nova, this is one I can bring up on screen, says, hail Andre, Tom, Rob, Kamran, and hail to the chat. Great show with Mandy and Kamran the other day. P.S. I hope KK gets eaten by the Rancor. And yes, that was a good show with Mandy. Also the one you did.
Well, the tragedy of this is that the glory of George Lucas, even the Rancor is loved. When the Rancor dies, the Rancor keeper cries. That's the brilliance of George Lucas. Even the Rancor has someone who loves him. When Miss Kennedy's time goes, I don't know.
I have a bottle of scotch that I bought in Las Vegas, and I am going to open it and I'm going to raise a glass when Miss Kennedy goes. Let's just
let's see who replaces her before you celebrate. But yeah, on that note, Stephanie Yanni, Sex Smugglers Cantina, says, "Poor Pablo, LOL." So yeah.
Well, Stephanie has been the crusader against Pablo for quite some time, so I know she's laughing real well.
Yeah. And T Neil 89 says, hello from Century City, Kamran. What raised red flags for me here was how this leak was written. Came off as calculated and structured. Sequential even. Like points on an outline. Is that just me?
No, I mean, it literally feels like a corporate outline. It's the kind of crap we see, I've seen on, for years, like the memo that comes in from the corporate big boss about how you got to do stuff. It's like an HR memo, right? And you just list out the things, and this is not someone spilling their guts on Reddit. Right. This is something that went through multiple drafts and was spell checked and was shown to people. Like, should I do this? Should I do that? I mean, this is a very structured document, which is corporate.
You think you throw a few typos in there to make it seem a little bit more authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll do that next time. I'm sure
they won't learn. That great thing, Andre, is they're not good at this and they won't learn.
Yeah.
Because nobody here actually cares. This is all just corporate blah, blah. Nobody cared. Whoever even put this out on behalf of, in my opinion, Ms. Kennedy, doesn't care about her. They're just getting a paycheck, right? So they're not going to care enough to do a job of excellence on any of this garbage.
And then Dark King says, choosing Reddit for the leak. Could this signal the beginning of the end for the influence of the legacy media?
I think that's right. I think when clueless clowns like these drones at Lucasfilm are beginning to figure out that putting stuff out through Entertainment Weekly and through the trades and all this stuff is not getting them the results they want, now they've got to actually go debase themselves to go to where the market is, which is places like Reddit.
Indeed. And then Ty Remmers says, one movie for the price of two should put any producer in a hot seat with a giant red ejection button. And ST Red Wolf says, the leak says that KK was missing from the Mets. So it's either that she was in control or let it go out of control. It's incompetence either way. Yeah, well, maybe they don't see it that way.
Well, I had this argument with a friend of mine who's a producer who, God bless him, he always takes the management side, right? He's always Mr. And that's why he's successful. He's always like, wherever the power is, I'm going to support that. And we had this argument. So when I was saying we had this argument after Solo, I said, come on, man, let's be honest here. How can you get to 80% of a movie and then say, oh, I don't like the dailies, I'm going to fire the directors, right? I've worked on shows where the first dailies, we got a call from the boss saying, what are you guys doing, right? The next day, right? And so this is, you don't go 80%. And he defended, he said, well, it happens. It happens. I was like, no, it doesn't happen. It's not competent. It's not real. But he he's got to support the system, right? Because that's where his bread and butter is. So
exactly. And then Dash D's says it's all a plot from Iger to get rid of KK. Make the underlings deal with each other. Stir the pot and sit back and rule what's left. It's a trap. It may be, but who is the behind the trap? That we'll get into.
Well, I'm curious to hear. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to do a couple of more before we get into that. Then I'll see which others I can bring up on screen here. Max says, I have a bottle of Pappy van Winkle ready for special occasions. KK leaving will be one of those. And I can also bring up Rob Altis, who says, if they put this much effort into good filmmaking, we wouldn't be talking about this. Which is a very good point. Manuel 311 says, hail chat, hail Bossman, Tom, Paulie, and guest of honor, Kamran. Kamran, can you please say hi, Comicsgate, and back cash grab, please? Take my money.
Before I say anything, what is this all about, and what will happen to me if I say this?
Okay, that's a reference to one of
the Comicsgate, right? And so
crowdfunded comics, actually, someone is putting together.
Yeah, it's like Ethan Van Sciver's. Like he's the one primarily associated with yeah. You know what? Like, do research before.
Yeah, before I quote
else.
Something, and and I've saw some recent debates over Mr. Van Sciver. I just want to stay away from all of that and associating, so you can use a clip for that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what I wish to associate with, please.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. So let Kamran do research into the matter before making any such requests.
Yes. Thank you.
I think that's very fair. Dark King says, guesses for who Ghost writes KK's autobiography. Well, any goes
I
for it.
mean, I don't know who gets it. I will tell you that it's going to be as successful as Governor Cuomo's book on how to be a great leader. So whatever, no one's going to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, let us get back into the main topic, because as we covered in this leak, it's the new information is basically that. Let me see if I can. Just give me 1 second here.
I always keep saying, though, Cameron, that because I'm a big sports fan, that Kathleen Kennedy is the Phil Jackson of Hollywood, because as everyone knows, Phil Jackson, he won 3 in a row with the Chicago Bulls. Yeah, but he was coaching Michael Jordan. Oh yeah, but then he won. Then he went to the Lakers. Yeah, he had Shaq and Kobe. Look at what happens when he goes to New York Knicks and has to put a team together himself. He fell apart. It's exactly the same thing. The game it's easy to be a great producer when you have the best talent around you.
Well, what you've described is symbolic of the entire Hollywood system as I've experienced it over 20 years, which is that the highest levels are a club of people that have gotten there through connections and have created a persona of genius, which is not justified. And when you meet these people and you realize this person doesn't know what's going on, right? And what's beginning to happen now, after 20 years of me experiencing, I'm sure it's decades older than my coming to this town, is that is beginning to crack, is that people are now being unveiled. Ms. Kennedy's situation is just the most prominent thing that's happening publicly of that club cracking. I mean, things that are happening with Mr. Kurtzman on Star Trek, which is another topic for another day, is another example of that.
Yeah. And also, Douglas Marsh says, sounds like they're getting ready to hang Pablo out to dry. One scapegoat ready to go. It does indeed sound like that. Yeah. But taking things back to the leak itself, because as we covered, the structure here is first established that there is no civil war and everything is hunky-dory. Kathleen Kennedy did nothing wrong. Then go through stuff that we already knew about the sequel trilogy, especially Rise of Skywalker, and then comes the piece de resistance, the other main topic. J.J. Abrams did nothing wrong. On the contrary, he did awesome. He has an amazing 4-hour cut. Actually, let's read exactly what it says here instead of me paraphrasing. What it says about J.J. Abrams is that there is an Abrams cut. It's 4 hours long, and apparently it's awesome. And we are implied, and it doesn't say so exactly, but it's kind of like implied that the Abrams cut is far, far better. It says here it's a more coherent story than the theatrical release, but it also filled with a lot of Abrams quality filled with a lot of Abrams quality writing. If you don't like J.J. Abrams films, this wouldn't make you a fan of Abrams. Lucasfilm thought that it leaned too heavily on the fan service. So basically, he made the movie for the fans, is implied. And Bob Chapek is cheap and won't release it, but you should demand it, is the implication. So, Kamran, what does this say about JJ?
And I know Tom has his opinion. I want to hear his opinion. So I'm going to state my opinion. And neither of us was present in this room when this was drafted. So at least as far as I'm aware. So we were just going off our intuitions based on and others can be right. I can be wrong about this. So I'm now going to share my opinion based on my journey in this town. This seems to me, because this entire what I call press release, this entire Reddit fake leak, is an effort to set up Ms. Kennedy's retirement. It's our effort to set up whatever she can of her legacy, to allow her to leave with some kind of dignity and to burn down, all of the evidence of the crime, which is, by blaming through her colleagues at Lucasfilm, or her minions at Lucasfilm, the Flying Monkeys, which was coming. And so part of that process of the next stage of her journey is to mend fences and to establish herself so that all of her relationships aren't burned when she is no longer in power. You see, one of the things that happens in Hollywood is people who are in power forget that they will one day not be in power, right? And that's true in politics, and it's certainly true in Hollywood. And I've witnessed this, where I have worked, I've actually developed projects and pitched them to people who are heads of studios, and they very arrogantly turned, nobody wants to watch that. And a year later, the same person was no longer the head of that studio and had been given it the production deal, right? Which is always the retirement. All right, here's your production deal. So they had a production deal, but they didn't realize the production deal isn't a real thing, right? It's your parachute to leave us alone now. You're done, right? So this same studio head who now had a production deal, a year later, after rejecting something I brought, it comes to me and says, hey, I really liked you as a writer, even if that wasn't the right project for us. So why don't we develop something together? And I said, sure, don't burn any bridges, sure. So we developed this TV series together, and we went in and pitched the people that had been his employees a year before, right? And now he's coming in as a producer under his producer's deal, and they dinged it. And I wasn't shocked by them dinging it. You get dinged all the time. You get rejected. But what I was shocked by was watching his body language in the room when they dinged it, when they started criticizing the pitch and this and that. And you could tell they weren't going to buy it. These were his minions, but now he was no longer the boss. So he didn't even grasp that it didn't matter anymore. He no longer had the power, and they weren't going to give him this thing, right? I was irrelevant to the conversation. This was a power play between these two people, right? I was watching it. And so this is what we're seeing here is he had burned his relationships. That's why he had been ousted from the studio. And now they didn't want to buy anything from him, even though he had a production deal, right? And I watched him witnessing his realization that he had burned his relationships. So Ms. Kennedy is smarter than that. And she wasn't smart enough to not burn those relationships. But now she's beginning to realize the sunset is coming. The sun is off the meridian. It's now heading towards the horizon. Her time is over. And so realizing that, she is rebuilding the relationships as best as she can. And as someone who, from what we can tell, loves the popular kids, she's the one who always loved the popular kids. I don't think she's rebuilding her relations with Colin Trevorrow, who's an up-and-coming brilliant director who she treated very poorly, and he hasn't forgotten that. She's not rebuilding her bridges with that guy because she doesn't think he's a cool kid, whereas J.J. Abrams is a cool kid, right? At least she believes that because she's a little bit again in the Hollywood popularity bubble, and Mr. Abrams, I think some of the shine has come off the luster, at least in the fans' eyes, over the last several years. But she doesn't know that because she's not in touch with anything outside the bubble. So he's the popular kid, and so as a result, now here we have this thing that, number one, exonerates her 100%, or at least believes exonerates 100%, even though it still makes her look incompetent. Number two, says that J.J. Abrams is this visionary who the fans would have loved his cut. I know what the fans would have loved. I read Colin Trevorrow's script, Duel of the Fates. The fans would have loved that. All of the fans, even the people that like The Last Jedi, would have loved what Trevorrow did because he doesn't contradict The Last Jedi. He makes it work based on that somehow, magically, right? That would have been what the fans would have loved. Mr. Abrams isn't that kind of filmmaker. As we saw from whatever final version that came out of Episode 9, he just did his best to hobble together a way to contradict The Last Jedi and just get this out of his hair. So he's just not that filmmaker that is being presented in this Reddit leak. But that is an olive branch being offered because we have also heard that there were tensions between J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy during the filming of the trilogy, right? And I do believe in my heart, I do believe J.J. Abrams is a fan of Star Wars. I do believe that. And I do believe he wanted to do good by it. But he wasn't able to under that structure. And he just went along with it. He's like, fine. But Trevorrow said, I'm not going to play along, and I'm out. And so he was out. So this is her effort to rebuild bridges, in my opinion, with J.J. Abrams for her production entity that's going to come probably at the end of this year. Whether that works, I don't know. But it was such a strategic thing here to absolve her of responsibility, to throw Hidalgo and the Flying Monkeys under the bridge. And I actually want to point this out because it was in the chat. Someone is saying, I think she's going to throw Rian Johnson under the bridge. She already started. This leak, is very clear that Rian Johnson did his own thing, right? And so that's, again, absolving her because Rian Johnson's doing his own thing with The Last Jedi. It's not her fault, right? But he was her poster boy. He was, and already this leak, which I believe is coming directly from her, is making JJ sound wonderful and Rian sound like that crazy kid who did his own thing and ruined everything, right? And from what I've heard, and I think the rumors are that Mr. Abrams and Mr. Johnson don't get along, at least when it comes to Star Wars, right? And I think we all saw that in how those movies were handled, right? And so that's a choice of where she thinks the cool club is. Now, granted, Mr. Johnson has continued to be successful. He does this huge deal, and God bless him, he's going to be successful, but she goes where she thinks the popular kids are. And she thinks J.J. Abrams remains the popular kid, and that's where the safest bet for her, because she knows Johnson is a lightning rod when it comes to Star Wars. So she went with the safest bet. That's what I think this entire press release is, or press release. I keep calling press release. I see it as a press release. This entire Reddit leak is an effort to set up her golden parachute with the public, to rebuild her reputation with the public, and to fix her relationships that she damaged when she was the boss and didn't realize one day she wouldn't be the boss. So that's what's happening here.
I think that's an excellent point, and I am inclined to agree that this was so incompetently done, and it's kind of like throws Pablo Hidalgo under the bus more than anyone, but also it distances Kathleen Kennedy from Rian Johnson in the exact same way that Simon Kinberg and Hutch Parker and the other guys at Fox distanced themselves from Josh Trank in the lead up to the release of the Fantastic Four. Because I remember there was like this article that was published in, I don't remember exactly where it was, either Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Entertainment Weekly, Deadline Hollywood, one of those. Basically, it was like an article there, and where they basically said that, oh yeah, we were fully behind Trank's vision. We supported him in everything that he wanted to do. This was his vision. He's such a visionary. We can just marvel at his vision. It was the heaviest distancing I have ever seen, because every single one basically pointed out his vision. All we do is support this crazy director. And that's kind of like what they were doing right there. And I see like echoes in that here, where basically you have this leak, very strategic leak, that creates distance to everyone, and the only one that is given any kind of favorable comment is J.J. Abrams. Now, Tom, you had a different point of view.
Well, yeah, as you just said, the only one who's painted in any good light here is J.J. Abrams. So if somebody was doing this for Kathy's benefit, they didn't do her any fucking favors.
But they might not have known that.
Yeah, well, the thing is this rings too much like that last leak that came out that was all about J.J. And again, this is all about positioning J.J. into a position. And again, why wouldn't he want to make nice with Kathleen Kennedy? Of course, his people are not going to make her sound like the bad guy in this situation. To me, it's just there's too much here that makes Kathy still sound incompetent and JJ still sound like the uber fucking hero. And just the way it's written, it's sucking his cock way too fucking much. Like, it still has his jizz all over it. Like, I'm so sorry that you could think this could come from Kathy's people. You could be right, but either she's the most egotistical person in Hollywood, or she's humble enough to put this out there and smart enough to put this out there. And I don't believe the latter two. The first one I believe is that she is so egotistical that something like this would send her fucking skyrocketing as far as being pissed, because it makes her look bad. And her career is done, like you just said. JJ, on the other hand, he's got a ways to go, and he's got some face to save. And let's be real, I've brought this up several times. Everything he's done has been a success. Sure, he apologized for lying about Khan in Into Darkness, but he never apologized for a bad movie. He just apologized for lying to us. And as far as he's concerned, Rise of Skywalker is the only smirch on his fucking credit. Like, that's the only thing that really fucking ruins his score. Like, if you look at it, because everything else was a massive fucking hit. It was Star Trek Beyond was the one that was the dumper. That he wasn't part of that, so he can blame that all on, everybody else involved and not him. Rise of Skywalker, yeah, sure, they brought him in to save the day, but the movie still flopped. And I'm sure that bugs him to no fucking end that people hated that movie and that he was stuck doing this. And yeah, sure, he's probably making nice with Kathleen Kennedy, but he sure ain't making nice with Rian Johnson here, which is another thing we know, is that was one of his big points of contention. And it keeps bringing up things that only people close to JJ would probably know. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of push and pull when it's always, well, JJ wanted what the fans wanted. So it's like they're trying to get us on JJ's side here. At least that's where I'm coming from. You could be right, but if whoever did this for Kathy's benefit, they really aren't helping her.
Well,
you made a very compelling case there, and you may very well be right. I want to just throw two possibilities as to why, I would suggest it, despite that compelling case, that's not necessarily true, in my opinion. And I could be wrong. So I just want to throw out the two possibilities. The two things, one is from my thought and one is from the chat. One is that something you said, which is that Miss Kennedy's journey is over. So making amends with her is not politically of much viability. So if you really wanted a Snyder cut, if a JJ cut, if that's what this is about, if this has come from JJ Abrams' camp that they wanted to preserve his reputation, they would be attempting to make good with Favreau, who is the future, who I think at this point people in Disney know is the future, even if they haven't figured out how to officially give him the title yet with the politics. That's one. The second point is Cynical Lindsay, who's a friend and a wonderful member of our community, who I think makes the point that that JJ has moved on to his other major deal with Warner's, and so Disney isn't his future. If this may ultimately be about salvaging his reputation with this alleged brilliant cut. I know that Colin Trevorrow's camp was so angry at how he was being falsely represented by Lucasfilm as this incompetent guy who they had to fire. And so that not Mr. Trevorrow himself, he's too dignified to do that, but his camp, his friends leaked out his script to try to preserve his reputation. That's how I got it. I got it from one of his friends, right? And so you may very well be right, but I'm going to think that there's something here happening that isn't about JJ, and we'll see, I guess, if ever the truth comes out.
No, and I get where you're coming from as far as like, oh yeah, his future is forward and not with Disney and so on. But then again, this is the guy who can't seem to let anything go. Every other week we hear about a bad robot pitch for Star Trek. Like he still can't seem to get his toe out of Star Trek. So I'm not so sure he's done with Star Wars yet. That's the thing is, he's one of those guys where if he can have he's like Kurtzman. And they come from the same cloth. They're cut from the same cloth.
They're part of the same club.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If they can have their toes in more than a dozen things at once, the better. It doesn't matter how incompetent they come out on the other end. It's almost like it's a game, like a race to see who can destroy the most first. And I know in their eyes, they're not destroying it. In their eyes, they see themselves as the heroes coming in to save the day. And that's where I feel like this is kind of one of those things that really probably gets JJ. Like it really bothers him because they came to him. They're like, please, we need you to fix this, blah, 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 blah. And the movie still turned out like shit. Well, that was his own fault, but we're not, that's neither here nor there. But again, who else would want a 4-hour cut of Rise of Skywalker and who would benefit from it? Sure as hell wouldn't be Katee because it would make her look even more incompetent if the damn thing ends up being better than the other version. That's the other problem you have here. And not to mention, like I've brought up a million times, what version would we exactly get here as well? Because we know the movie was reshot 10 times over to the point where they didn't even probably finish half the versions, to where Hasbro threw their hands up in the air and they didn't release the toys because they're like, we've got a warehouse full of toys of characters that aren't in the fucking movie. What are we supposed to do here?
Well, but that actually brings out something that the chat has been raising, is that, does anybody want this J.J. Abrams cut? Is the release the JJ cut, that's not an organic fan base movement. It feels like this thing is trying to push that.
Exactly, and my point.
Is it pushing it to release that, or is it pushing it to create a bridge of, is this Kathleen Kennedy trying to push this to create a, she knows there's going to be no release. Is this to recreate a friendship? I don't know.
Well, one of the things too is that this is there's another side to this here. J.J. Abrams has been taking it on the chin recently because of what? Because of his Superman movie with Ta-Nehisi Coates. And so this is the added benefit of this is to paint him in this light that he's always a misunderstood auteur when he's really not. And this is for him. He's trying to salvage this. I wouldn't doubt that he contributed to this. Hey, you know what? I have to salvage my reputation here because $500 million that he got from Warner Brothers, that's a lot of bread. And the last thing he wants is for Warner Brothers to say, oh my God, what the hell did we just do?
I mean, wherever the origin of this is, it reveals the dysfunction at the highest level of Star Wars. And it reveals the pathologies involved.
Well, that's the thing is, no matter who's right of where it came from, and that goes back to my initial point, is this disproves nothing what we've been reporting all this time. And not only does it not disprove that there's a cultural civil war at Lucasfilm, it supports it. Because every line after that basically lays out exactly what we've been saying for the past 2 years has been going on there. and that is Favreau just wants to tell good Star Wars. There's a group of people that want that. There's another group of people like Pablo Hidalgo who only want to push political ideologies and use it as a platform instead of what it is, and that is, a money-making franchise, right? And the fact that this is even happening to me is mind-boggling, and how people aren't stepping in finally. And we've said this a million times over, and I answer my own question when people ask this, but it really has gotten to this point where how much longer can the people above just let this go on? I mean, sooner or later, somebody's got to step in and say, what the fuck is going on here? And why are we bleeding money? Because news just recently came out. They were supposed to do an expansion on Galaxy's Edge, and they canceled that, or they put it on hold. And of course, the excuse could be just, the pandemic. But let's be real. They're not spending any more money on Galaxy's Edge. People like Jay have told us flat out, Drunk 3 people have told us, they're trying to revert it back to the old Star Wars, or at least to Mandalorian, because that's what people want. They obviously don't want this other shit. So I can't believe now at this point that Kathleen Kennedy and all these other people and JJ and stuff like that have become completely aware of what they did wrong. And that's what this leak tells me, is that JJ knows that people didn't like these movies. And a lot of the stuff that it's saying in here that he wanted to do, that's supposedly in his version, is all this fan service, is straight up stuff people wanted to see, like Luke living and having a decent ending. And that was the other thing that JJ said from the very start they had a problem with, that I think he was kind of telegraphing where they were butting heads. And that was every time he brought Luke into the script, nobody else was important. It's like, dumb motherfucker, because Luke Skywalker is Star Wars. Duh. And he knows that, obviously. We all know that. But Kathleen Kennedy told him, no, get him the fuck out of there. So JJ's solution, not have him in the movie at all.
Or just talk about him. He made him another mystery box is what it did.
Well, yeah, that too. But that was the solution. And I even think Mark Hamill was trying to tell us this kind of shit from the start. Wait a minute, why was he even there? He even kind of questioned it himself. And to me, I even feel like he was trying to tell us, oh yeah, at one point, Luke was a big part of the script. And I believe a lot of this crap that's in here, to be honest with you. But I do feel like it's also using a lot of misdirection. And I don't know, I'll call out the pink elephant in the room. Let's be clear. This entire thing was brought out to try and make one person and one person alone look bad. And I don't think it did that. Do you want me to say who that is, Andre?
Yeah, go for it.
Doomcock.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Well, I think there's more.
I think that's right. That's actually
more things can be true at once. But absolutely, this is going after Doomcock. It really is. Yes. Because many of the things here seem aimed at refuting scoops that he's not the only one to report on, but that are most closely associated with him. And the very first thing they do is basically say, there's no cultural civil war. And we've been saying that there is, but he's been saying it even louder.
Yeah, because I've been trying to push the idea that, look, it's more of a Cold War, to the point where, I mean, even like it says in this leak, I've questioned how much Katee even knows about it. Mm-hmm. And I think I've even said it on live shows before. And I'll even sit here and question whether or not Filoni is somebody to trust as well.
I doubt Katee even talks to Frank when she gets home. At this point,
Frank is so busy lately. I doubt he has time for her. Have you seen what he's been up to lately?
Cameron, you met Frank, right?
Yeah. I've actually met both of them.
I picture Frank Marshall as the most chill dude imaginable. He's like, I picture him just like cooling out by the pool with a Hawaiian shirt on, Mai Tai in his hands. Katee comes home. Oh, I can't believe. Oh God, I'm so stressed out. Hey, honey, how was work today?
I made a bunch of movies and a bunch of money.
In my interactions, I've met Frank Marshall twice. I've met Kathleen Kennedy once. This was very early in my career. They won't remember me, and probably it's better that they don't. But yes, in my interactions, I found Frank Marshall to be extremely laid back, relaxed kind of guy. You're talking about somebody who was very body language, very, very confident that he knows whatever success he's had, he's actually earned it. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So.
See, I knew it. He'd be like the most chill dude ever.
Yeah.
There's a method to my madness, Rob.
Yeah, but no, I agree with that. I think that this is something that can serve dual purposes. I don't think that this was put out there just to get at Doomcock, because then there's many more things that they could do. But I do think that, since we're putting this thing out there, let's begin with this, to like stick it to that guy. I think that there might be an element of that. Kamran,
Well, the funny thing is that
popular is Doomcock and ourselves and others in our circles in the offices of Hollywood in general, and Lucasfilm in particular?
Well, I mean, I think both you and Doomcock, both of these channels in particular, have become a cultural impact inside of Hollywood. And the funny thing is, it's a cultural impact nobody will admit out loud. No one is saying, I'm not hearing people saying, I saw that on Doomcock, I saw that on Midnight's Edge. And yet everyone seems to know what's on Doomcock and Midnight's Edge. Like, they'll be like, well, there's rumors about this and that. I'm like, yeah, I know where those rumors came from, right? But no one will actually use the name of the channels, right? And so to me, it's very clear that you're having a very major impact, but within the bubble, nobody wants to admit that they're watching you guys, and yet everyone's watching you guys.
So in what you're saying is, in the very near future, there's going to be a book, Edge of Doom, how 2 YouTube channels change the face of Hollywood.
That's actually a great idea. I could actually envision exactly that title and that book. I think that can actually happen. You might have just done a prophetic Nostradamus moment. Like,
clip that, Andre. Clip it.
Writer.
For future posterity.
You should clip that, because I actually think some young journalist at Forbes who's ambitious, who's like a popular business writer, would write that story and that book would do well. It'd probably take a couple of years more before we be ready for the market, but I think that's going to happen.
The sad thing is, when they get to me, it is like, so Rob, what do you think of your impact? I'm like, what are you asking me for? Go ask somebody. I don't know. It's like, they'll try to cancel me over something.
I know Rob's answer. He goes, my contributions were quicksand porn and karate.
That's right.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, no, actually, that's this is something that I've heard from many places, that there are many channels in our sphere. Like, I've heard that there are 3 in particular, and that's the Nerdrotic, it's Doomcock, and it's ourselves. There's also like Geeks and Gamers, but that's like an annoyance for like exposing what's going on. It's Gary, Doomcock, and ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, I think and with great respect to Jeremy, because it was because of Jeremy that I'm even on YouTube, and it was on his Geeks and Gamers actually featured me, and that's how I sort of entered into this world. I think Geeks and Gamers is seen as a lightning rod. It is seen as a place of very impassioned opinions, which I think is fair, and so it has a different impact than I think Midnight's Edge, which is seen as more detached reporting, even if it has strong opinions. And so I think there is a difference in how people are perceived, with regard to whether the industry is listening to you guys or not.
Yeah, that's very cool. So like we are the ones of whom they do not speak.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is this, and I want to say this with regard to that, the brilliant idea of that book. A few weeks after The Last Jedi, but maybe like it was in January, right after The Last Jedi came out, which was like in December, right? I've said this before, and I think I've said this on this channel, that I went and I spoke at my business school. Like, I have an MBA from Dartmouth, from the Tuck School, and I came back as an alumnus to speak. And it was then that I made my first public thing. I think, guys, we need to look at what's happening at Lucasfilm. And I said this to the business school class. I said, keep an eye on what's happening at Lucasfilm. Within a few years, this is going to become major business news at the mismanagement of Lucasfilm. I just felt that right after The Last Jedi. I said, this is the beginning of a disaster coming, right? And I said, business school cases will be written. And now we're seeing Forbes articles, and eventually business school cases are about to be written, because now it's become the actual point of conversation in the business community that Lucasfilm and Disney is a completely mismanaged mess. And I saw that coming, 4 years ago now.
It really is, to me, it is a fascinating case study. Apart from what we're doing and everything, it really is a fascinating case study in that you had Disney, a money-making machine, and Star Wars, a money-making machine for nearly 40 years. And within a span of like 6 or 7, they brought the whole house crumbling down. It really is. I mean, and to me, it's like, okay, listen, the people at Star Trek, they're trying to make good Star Trek. They just don't know how. these guys, they're just so blind. I'm like, I don't even think they have the first clue what goes into a good Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the inevitable end result of Hollywood began as a group of brilliant entrepreneurs from essentially from New York, from the East Coast, who were essentially shoe salesmen, right? That moved over from Brooklyn and the Bronx in the 1910s, to create an industry, the film industry with this new technology. And they were, like I said, because they were entrepreneurs, they were shoe salesmen from the old days. They were people that understood what the market wanted. And so as entrepreneurs, they gave the market what it wanted, and they did that, and the system was set up. And then so that was the founding fathers, right? The Louis Mayers and the Jack Warners of all the town, the moguls, right, who founded the town, were the brilliant entrepreneurs who knew what the market wanted and gave it to them. Then after those guys retired, then you had the next generation, the second generation, which was the corporate executives, which started essentially in the 70s when all these studios started being bought out by the major large corporations, right? And so you had all of these people coming in, and they were still smart business people in there, but they weren't the visionary entrepreneurs. They were just managing what someone else had created, and still made successful stuff for the next 40 years of that. And then you have the final generation, which is, the next generation that came out of that, which are essentially entitled, incompetent people who have created a bubble in the club. That's when I entered this town, when the bubble was really rising and growing, when the great entrepreneur, the great businessmen, I say the entrepreneurs were done, but the great business people of the town had begun to be replaced by this generation of entitled people that met at country clubs and met at their dad's houses and were part of the next generation. And so that's the final process of when you have people who are not even business people, but are there because they're part of a social club and are there for that reason. Everything that we're seeing is in Hollywood is the result of this bubble of a social club, right? And not about business. And that's why it doesn't make any sense. So the Chinese have this saying, which is that there's a cycle of wealth of 3 generations. The first generation creates it, the second generation manages it, and the third generation squanders it. And that's exactly what we're watching in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
I was sorry, I was going to say that's a very astute observation. And Rom, have your say, and then we're going to get into.
I called the Frank Zappa equation. I'm like, you had all the entrepreneurs, all the guys who were greenlighting all the good stuff in the music industry in the 60s, were the guys in cigars with the suit saying, "I don't know what this is. Take a chance, put it out, see if it sells." And then they hire a hippie thinking they could do it again. And then the hippie comes in who says, "Well, we can't take a chance on that because it's not what the audience wants." And I know they think they're the arbiters of taste, which the guy in the suit and the cigar wasn't. He was more willing to take a chance because he said, "You know what? I think people are going to be into this, because he's not as arrogant to think he has his finger on the pulse of the audience, of the population." Andre.
Yes. Let's go into some more super chats before we move on, and let's go straight into the classic super chats that I can no longer bring up on screen. Michael Miller asks, Kamran, with the stock bloodbath of Viacom CBS recently, because I don't know if you followed, but the share price for Viacom CBS has been not pretty. Can they afford to double down on what has failed with Kurtzman and JJ Trek? Looking for insight.
Yeah, the problem is I'm always careful when I talk about Star Trek and Discovery, because I actually have writers that I've worked with and now write for that show, and so I don't want to insult them or disrespect them. They're desperately trying to survive in a bad situation, and they've been trying to survive through all of this chaos, right? They're not high-level writers, but I've worked with them, and I don't want to throw them under the bus. So I'm always cautious. I don't give a crap on anybody in Star Wars, right? But I do give a little bit of, I don't want to damage some of these people who I've seen struggle to survive under the Kurtzman regime there and have survived. But I will say this: the problem I think with Star Trek is that the system hasn't figured out who to turn to. With Star Wars, there was a Favreau. There was a passionate, competent fan that the system trusted, right? Favreau had already made Disney a lot of money with The Lion King and all sorts of stuff, with Iron Man, they just trusted him. And the blessing is he's a sincere, true Star Wars fan and wants to fix this. They don't know what to do in Star Trek. They don't know who to turn to. Gene Roddenberry's not around. and they should turn to some of the people that I've worked with that were from the old, from the older generation of the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I worked with Ira Stephen Bear, who was the creator of Deep Space Nine. He was the first showrunner I worked with. He was my boss on the Twilight Zone with UPN when I was a staff writer. And I was just talking to my manager yesterday because we both discovered she's reps Ira, and she didn't know that. Wait a minute, you guys worked together years ago? I was like, yeah, and Ira's wonderful, and I would work with him again in a second. Ira Stephen Bear is somebody that should be who the industry is turning to fix Star Wars. I'm Star Trek. Keep saying Star Trek. Thank you, Star Trek. I don't want to do this nonsense, right? It's just my brain has been in Star Wars for so long. But yeah, Star Trek, and they're not turning to Ira. And because he is an old school, brilliant, successful showrunner, but he's not necessarily a name that everyone on this chat knows, right? He's not necessarily a public name, whereas Jon Favreau is. And so who do you get to fix Star Trek when you have the system that is still set up with the bubble of relationships and a club and buddies? And it's all about, Jon Favreau was in the club, so it was wonderful that he could fix Star Wars. Who's in the club at that level that actually cares about Star Trek? I don't know. I mean, I believe, Mr. Kurtzman's ex-partner, Bob Orsi, his heart is in the right place. I have several friends who know him very well and have said he is a fan like us. And there's a reason why those two are not working together anymore. They had a different vision for things, right? And Mr. Kurtzman's vision, he fits into the club, and Mr. Orsi doesn't, for his own personal beliefs, his political beliefs, sort of like me, right? He's a little bit of doing his own thing. And that was an unsustainable partnership with somebody who was comfortable with going along with the club and its propaganda, and somebody who wasn't. That was going to break. That was inevitably going to break. And that's what happened. And Mr. Orsi could fix Star Trek, but he's not in the club. He doesn't have the career anymore that Mr. Kurtzman has, even though I think he's the better writer. So that's where we are. It's the club, and there's no fans of Star Trek in the club. That's where we are.
You know what? I'll do it. Okay. You back me to a corner. I'll fix Star Trek. All right. Just hashtag Shlomo Trek. Make it happen, people.
You do a good job. I don't doubt it, because you love it. You love it.
I certainly do a better one than Kurtzman. But basically, yeah, Michael Miller there. You see, that's a problem. And then Midnight Sun says, "Hello, everyone. I would like to see a Venom movie, special makeup and creative replacing the CGI like Carpenter's The Thing. What do you guys think? Also, basically, he wants to see practical effects for Venom instead of CGI.
I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion of it either way. It sounds like that sounds, if it's well done and well written script, sure, why not?
Yeah, if it's well done, why not? But good luck with all of that stuff. Is all I'm going to say. Like, there are limits to practical.
For me, I care less about the effects than I care about the story. And so, if the story of Venom is great, then either way, it'll work for me. So
yeah. I don't know if Tom or Rob, do you have any strong thoughts on Venom with practical effects?
Wasn't there a bit more practical effects in this last one than there was that most people thought, I think, or
well, not enough relative to the question, I think. So, like, yeah,
I'm not sure. I mean, I thought the effects were fine, and at least when it comes to Venom, he's one of those characters where CGI kind of lends itself better to the liquidness of the character, or whatever word you want to look for.
Yeah.
In most cases, though, I'm someone who gravitates towards. I'm usually someone who gravitates towards practical effects, but in the case of Venom, I think they did an all right job with the CGI.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. Agent Zero says, "We thought they were playing 3D chess with us. Turns out the morons were playing Candyland." Which is a good point.
They're playing Candyland with the wrong pieces. They're not even playing Candyland right.
Yeah.
Candyland's a fun game. I still think it's a fun game.
Yeah. And Cultured Casino sent us a Unicorn Super sticker. And Kamran, I think you will appreciate this. The Hijabi Gamer says, "Just saying Ramadan Mubarak to all fasting." How's fasting going, Kamran?
It can be very challenging. We'll just leave it at that. But Ramadan Mubarak, anyone celebrating, and blessings to my Hijabi Gamer, who I've seen many times in the chat before.
Yeah, actually, I was watching her channel last weekend, and she's got a good channel. Go subscribe to her.
I didn't know about
that. Go check out the Hijabi Gamer. I've said it many times. So go check out the Hijabi Gamer's channel. We have to have her on one of these days. And then Ditzy says, hello, everyone. Special shout out to George St. Pierre. He's a big Star Wars fan and keeps up with related news, so he is probably watching. Well, there you heard it.
And welcome,
shout out
Lorena.
to George St. Pierre. And welcome,
Hello, everyone.
Lorena. How's it going?
Hey, it's going pretty good. It's going
Now we
pretty
have
good.
a beautiful woman on satisfied. All this
God
male
bless you.
testosterone bores me. And so now we have a lovely, elegant Lorena, who I'm so delighted.
Cameron's so sweet. Oh, but glad to be on here with you guys. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Indeed. So, how are you? I have to say, I greatly enjoyed your interview with Kamran earlier in the week, and also the one with Mandy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we had a great time. So glad you enjoyed it. It was so much fun talking about The Simpsons when it was original and fun, and how much we love the character of Apu, and for a lot of us, Apu is almost just as important as Homer or Bart Simpson in The Simpsons. So it was just wonderful to have that discussion, with Kamran and with everyone else in the chat, and just show just how much the show has gone from being edgy and fun and no one was sacred to just being a woke hot mess in a handbasket right now.
Yeah, actually, on that note, because everyone should go check out Lorena Creel's channel and the interview with Kamran Pasha, where they spoke about, among other things, The Simpsons. Because what happened recently is Hank Azaria, the voice actor behind Apu, apologizing for having voiced Apu in the first place, and saying that he wanted to that he was like halfway tempted to personally apologize to every single person of Indian descent in general, or in particular, and Southeast Asian descent in general, for having had the audacity to portray a character like
I know how we fix
Apu
this.
in the first place.
All you do is everybody who's Indian or of Indian descent just quickly go, okay, Hank, give us a check.
Yeah. I want my reparations, Hank. If you hurt me so much, you hurt me so much. First of all, I want some of you made a lot of money off of hurting me. Give me my check.
All that
I
shit
love you,
will go
Hank, and I
away
love
real fast.
Oh yeah, hold them to their own standard. They can't stand that.
No, I feel honestly, and I'm glad John Cleese called him out for it too.
Oh,
Because just quit apologizing. Eddie Murphy, all you guys, stop it.
Cleese is a very classy guy. He's been speaking out against cancel culture, and he's not. I mean, I think if anyone follows him, he's not a right wing guy. I think we know his politics, right? He's a sort of standard Hollywood traditional liberal, which is now a little bit right wing because of all this, because we're so woke now. But I remember 3 or 4 years ago, he came out and he talked about, on Twitter about how you couldn't do any of his old stuff. The comedy needs to be on the edge. And I remember that I liked that a tweet that he said at the time about how comedy is self-destructing by creating sacred cows you can't talk about. And right after that, this woke showrunner that I knew unfollowed me because they couldn't be associated with someone that liked that tweet. Whatever.
It's just ridiculous, because I remember one of the great things about comedy was that, again, no one was sacred. You made fun of everyone, and that's what made it funny, because you could laugh at if they were making fun of a certain group. It's like, okay, go ahead and laugh, but eventually they're going to start making fun of you. So it's like, okay,
on stage, I did one joke. There was only one time I got heckled for a joke I did on stage, and it was a bit about, in the old days we used to have to go into the back room of the video store to get the naughty movies, and and I made a joke about straying too far into the wrong part of the naughty movie section, and somebody in the crowd goes, "I'm from Germany, and we are more open minded than that." And then I go, "Yeah, okay, leave it to the Germans to tell me about being open minded, okay."
That's where we are now. That's where we are now, because we're so woke. We're so woke that a more conservative culture is necessary to wake us up. So,
Yeah, indeed. But we were on Super Chat, so let's go through a couple more of those, and I'm sure that we'll get some great conversation in between. Roman Lakovets says for 200 Swedish krona, you said that the Forbes piece on Chapek spells trouble for KK because bigwigs read it. But Scott Mendelson, the biggest KK defender, also writes for Forbes. Why won't the bigwigs read his pieces and listen to him instead? That's a good question.
I answered that, but I think that came on almost an hour ago, and I answered that in the chat. But I want to answer that here because I want to thank you for raising that. Mr. Mendelson is and has always been seen as essentially one of these. He's like the trades, right? He's like the trades in Hollywood. He's essentially a shill for the system, right? So none of these shareholders believes his reviews or anything else. He's representing sort of the voice of the Hollywood system. So he's never had an influence on shareholders because he's a known person to simply reflect the mindset. He's a salesman essentially for an idea, right? Yeah. Whereas this reporter, and as we talked about in the time that I was on when it came out, is a respected traditional reporter of Forbes, and then they immediately shut down their Twitter right after they put that out there. It was dropping the nuclear bomb on Hiroshima and taking off, right? They knew what they were doing, and they were instructed to do that, and it was done, on the behest of shareholders and possibly other powerful people within Disney. So that is why it had the impact that Mr. Mendelson didn't. Right, because Mr. Mendelson is just it's like it's like Daily Variety presenting the point of view of the studios. No shareholder is going to take that seriously.
And also, he would never put out a headline like that because there's like this is just my own observation, but Forbes is a completely different league from Variety and the Hollywood Reporter, except for when Scott Mendelson writes for Forbes. Then it's the exact same level as Variety and the Hollywood Reporter.
And the readers of the magazine know that. They've been reading him for years now, and the readers of the magazine who are like, why is my stock in Disney not doing the way I want it to? Oh, Scott Mendelson keeps telling me that movie was great. I know that movie wasn't great, so they just ignore him.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like the thing It has the Forbes headline, but really it's not the Forbes writing. It's Scott Mendelson, and he might as well be writing for Variety or Deadline Hollywood or something.
Oh, absolutely.
So when it comes from him, my view, and with all so take with grain of salt and blah blah all that, but my view is that when he writes, it doesn't have the Forbes seal of. Well, obviously it has the approval because he writes for them, but it doesn't have the weight behind the full Forbes name that it otherwise.
No, it
lacks the gravitas.
It's very light. It's very lightweight. It's like the shill writer for the industry. It's like, okay, who's he sucking up to in Hollywood this time? Because I've seen his various Disney articles, and that's pretty much it. Disney putting out everything. It's great. It's great. Everything is wonderful over at Disney. Everything they put out turns to gold. And then you see that Forbes article that dropped, and the headline was purposely attention grabbing. And it's like, okay, well, this is what I haven't been getting from Scott Mendelson. That's why.
And then the guy vanished.
Poof, and he was gone. So, if he was, sanctioned, so to speak, why has his Twitter disappeared?
Yeah. Also, because Mendelson, I get the impression that he will do that, like the studios, they have his direct number. I think, again, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, the studios have his direct number. If they need a certain point of view out there, just as they would with the Hollywood Reporter and Variety, he is just like someone else in the Rolodex. Like, for instance, when the word got out that, hey, this Snyder Cut, it's actually doing really, really good. And through pre-sales, we've already profited on it. It's already in the green, so everything is just icing on the cake right here. Then Sarnoff and Time Warner probably were like, oh shit, we need a hit piece right away. Who do we call? And then that guy, and then they got like a hit piece the day after, which was completely nonsensical.
But that was strategic. That was exactly because the what we're seeing in Warner, which is perhaps for another video, is a different kind of civil war. You know, Lucasfilm, it's an internal war. This is actually, you know, this is the
it's a street fight. It's like a street fight. It's all out there.
It's a drunken bar fight. Yeah.
It's like, you know, you just got taken over by the huge consumer-oriented conglomerate, and which is what we go back to what we've been saying here of the third generation, which is essentially a social club, right? And now you're getting in business people again. They're not necessarily entrepreneurs like the, you know, Jack Warner or you know, or Louis B. Mayer were, but they're business people. The second generation, they're coming back trying to make money again, right? And so now the third generation, which is entitled kids in the club, don't want dad to come in. Forget grandpa who created the business; he's out. But dad coming back in and taking control, you know, and taking away our fun. No, we're not going to let that happen.
Exactly. And then we have some more questions for you. Dash D's says for 20 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much. Hey, Kamran, regarding the Lucas situation, it reminds me of a camouflage course I had. They're blending in to hide what's really going on while getting free promotion by presenting chaos. They make a living by creating stories.
So I'm not sure I fully understand the.
Yeah, there was more of a comment rather than a question. But basically saying that, yeah, it was an observation that, yeah, it reminds me of a camouflage course where they had to blend in to hide what's really going on. So,
well, in my view, if that's happening, it is being done incompetently. Right. And that was my friend Isaac Fisher said, this is all, if you want to do this correctly, you've got to, you know, not make it such that both Tom and I agree this is not coming from an authentic, you know, insider who's speaking, whether it's from the Kathleen Kennedy or the J.J. Abrams or whether they're working together, those camps. It's done so poorly, you're not camouflaging anything. You're bringing attention to it, that this isn't authentic.
Yeah, indeed. And Stephanie Yanni, Sex Smugglers Cantina, wonders, so when do we open the bubbly?
We might actually open it right now because I just saw someone mention that Doomcock has a video out, and I went and just looked at it, and it came out a minute ago, and it says Star Wars rumor Kennedy out as Lucasfilm president. Multiple sources are telling him.
Yeah, I saw that comment as well. So
we'll see. I mean, this you know, and it was because of my videos that it's happened. So
yeah, no, but that's actually again, this is what you've been predicting, that if something has happened and getting revealed, this article from Forbes, as you pointed out, that was a nuclear attack. Like, it wasn't even nuclear; it was thermonuclear, which is even worse than nuclear. And it's going to force a reaction, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what that reaction will be. In the meantime, while we wait for that, we have some more super chats to go through. Frankie Pickle Fork says for $10, thank you so much. This has all the earmarks of a cover story. KK is on her way out and is trying to save her legacy. Wants to make it look like her leaving and Jon Favreau's takeover was her idea and her decision. This is actually a very good point. If it now suddenly transpires, again, I'm just guessing here, because if something has happened and I'm not privy to it yet, but if it now suddenly has transpired that Favreau suddenly takes over Lucasfilm, then this leak right here, as the good Frankie Pickle Forks points out, would be a way of trying to suggest that it was her idea for him to take over. Should there be something to that?
If I am correct that this leak was predominantly coming from the Kennedy camp, because I think it is possible that maybe there's some collaboration with a buddy over at, this can help JJ out as well. Remember, it's a club, right? It's a club of friends. Even if they don't like each other, it's a club, right? So you got to keep supporting the club, right? So let's say that this is coming from the Kennedy camp. If Doomcock's current video is correct, and I'm going to, go watch it right after we finish, then it's not surprising that this happened a day ago, right? Because then if Ms. Kennedy is out, she's known that for at least a few days, probably a few weeks, right? And so if this suddenly came out a few days ago, this leak, it's because she was already, all right, well, it's over. I mean, I've been told it's done. Now I have no choice but to fix the situation or my rep or my standing inside the club before I'm out, because it's very strange that it would come out at this moment and suddenly Doomcock is reporting that she is allegedly out. So I did think the timing is not a coincidence.
I told you, Cameron, I'm not going down without a fight. I tell Frank that every evening.
The one thing I will say is, whether Tom is right or whether I'm right about the origins of this, the one thing that makes me laugh is that all of them hate Pablo Hidalgo. Both camps will throw that guy under the bus. This guy who made himself the face of the dumbest part of Lucasfilm by protecting the dumb ideology that I don't think even J.J. Abrams buys into, right? Even if Miss Kennedy does, right? And he put himself out there. He insulted the fans, betrayed George Lucas, and both of these camps are throwing this guy out.
How long before we see everything coming out like Geode, the High Republic? How much of it was Pablo Hidalgo's idea? I mean, how long before we start getting that?
I mean, I don't think Hidalgo is stupid. I don't think he was as dumb to create Geode. He was mentored by Lucas. I think he's someone who betrayed Lucas, and threw him aside for his own personal ambition, right? And I don't think he's dumb enough to promote Geode. I think that's coming straight from Ms. Kennedy.
Actually, the person responsible for creating Geode was actually the author's boyfriend.
Yeah,
I know that.
Before.
But at the same time,
it fits into Miss Kennedy's vision of what a character is. Which is
it did.
Actually, Cameron, I don't know if I showed this, but I have the second generation Geode action figure that I improved. Yeah, so
make your own. I love that.
He's so sad because he knows he's part of the worst part of Star Wars. So
it was Geode. It was the rock that broke down the foundation of the whole thing. It was the rock that brought it all tumbling down.
Indeed.
Well, I want to. I shared this with Andre before we came on. I want to share this with the audience because there's some people in the chat are saying, "Wow, you got a place to speak here." There's obviously, it's not even a risk. I mean, obviously, I'm putting myself out there as someone who's still working in the industry at a decent level. And just yesterday, I had my manager, I love her, God bless her. She called me and said, "I'm working on several projects right now. One was a new thing that I just had a meeting on that they were really excited with me on." And then they called her and said, I don't know about this guy. We're hearing some stuff about him, right? Like this kind of thing, right? He's out there talking or whatever. And God bless her. She, she's been with me, my manager, for 17 years, and I love her. And she's seen me with all my ups and downs and everything. And she just said, "Well, look, if you're not enthusiastic about him, then I don't want him working with you." It's as simple as that, right? All these other big, much more successful producers are very enthusiastic. And if you're going to get influenced by, well, he's out there, he said some stuff about famous people on YouTube, I don't want you working with them, right? So there is a cost to me doing this. As a cost I paid yesterday, right? But I also am of the view that I don't want to work with anyone that can behave that is of that kind of character anyway. And so I'm actually glad that people reveal themselves when I put myself out.
Indeed, exactly.
I will say though, before we move on, we're getting a lot of requests in the chat for me to sell Geode. I do have plenty more googly eyes that I got. So hey, you know what? Anything's possible.
You're gonna make more money on it than Lucasfilm will.
Yeah.
Because you have a sense of humor about how dumb this is. They play it straight. They don't know.
Exactly. And with that, let's move on with a couple more super chats because we have some to get through. Alexa Serra wonders, is this why Indy 5 got greenlit, Kamran, just to get her to leave and possibly make room for Favreau?
It makes sense. It makes sense because Indy 5 has been dead for some time, and suddenly it's alive, right? All that you hear about, Mads Mikkelsen, also it's moving, and it's where did this come from? Out of being dead for so long, right? Even Spielberg wasn't excited about what's happening, right? It feels like this is all part of a settlement. It feels like everything that's happened in the last few days is part of a settlement to get her out. It just feels like this leak is part of a settlement, right? Whether it's coming from J.J. Abrams, who wants to mend fences with her as she leaves, or it's coming from her wanting to mend fences with J.J. Abrams. It just feels all like part of a settlement.
That's a very astute observation that very well could be clipped for later on. And then Yaskby says, preach, Kamran. And Mags says Kamran is on fire and dropping truth bombs, while Dexter Berry says for $20, Swimming with Sharks, a movie from 1994 that I have not seen, but I know that it stars Kevin Spacey and what's her name? Michelle Forbes? Yeah, I think so. No, Forbes, the one from Star Trek: The Next Generation and Battlestar Galactica. And I guess that maybe there's some relevance to in the story there to the topic at hand. And then Yellow Flash said for $10, this leak is 100% fake news and a desperate attempt to get some kind of Snyder Cut movement going for their garbage. The Spas from Rain Man says, it's just so egregious. Ryan Johnson can make good movies. I've seen Brick. Someone actually let him make a bad movie on purpose on a $4 billion property. Strike Force Alpha says, General Chang's, quote, I am constant as the Northern Star. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Very apt quote right there.
Yeah.
Matthew Sturgis says for $19.99. Thank you so much. Awesome to hear Kamran rant. It makes me think of this quote from Ethan Bubblegum Tate in Futurama. You're all fools of the highest caliber. That's certainly true for Lucasfilm.
Well, I will say this, which I also said, offline, which I'll say here, which is, I went through my long period of just trying to fit in and try to get into that club that I talked about, right? And then the club didn't want me, and made it very clear and made it very straightforward that it didn't want me, and didn't matter if I was good. In fact, it was even worse if I was good at what I was doing, because that embarrasses the club, which isn't about talent. It's about your buddies, right? And like, oh, this guy's really good. Well, now he's making us look bad. And so the mistake of that is, guess what, guys? There's that old adage that it is better to have somebody like me inside the tent pissing out than somebody like me outside the tent pissing in, which is what I'm doing now. Because I'm like, I got nothing to lose. You don't want me in the club? I still have a career despite that. And I'm just going to, speak the truth, and whatever comes.
Exactly. And also, as I like to point out, you're a published author. Mm-hmm. You have an MBA. You are far more skilled than many of these hacks in the club. Mm-hmm. That if left to their own devices, taken out of it, like really, what can they do? What skills do they have? They'd be flipping burgers at best. Some of them maybe like flipping houses or selling rotten hedge funds or something like that. But like most of them would be like, just like look at the education of Kathleen Kennedy.
Well, I discovered this. I not only have an MBA, I actually have a JD. I have a law degree and I have an MFA from film schools. I got 4 degrees, right? And all these degrees. And I discovered that actually created people's resentment very early on in the career. When I arrived here, people discovered. First of all, I was a brown guy, which, they want to put me in a box for that. Oh, I'm a Muslim guy. Well, they don't really like my religion. So that's strike 2. Okay. Strike 3. This guy's really good at what he does. Okay. That's strike 3. And strike 4 is he's got 4 degrees from like Ivy League schools, right? That it's a real problem that they're like, this guy is a real troublemaker. He's single because I don't need this town. I had other successful careers. And if I, God forbid, ever permanently done because I talked on Midnight's Edge and my career is over, right? I'll create something new because that's what I've done my entire life. And that's what's threatening to the system.
I will say we have had people on here that have gone on to great things afterwards. So I don't think that you'll be gone from talking to us.
And somebody's commenting in there. It's like, he's not humble. I'm like, yeah, I'm not humble. I'm humble. I'm a religious guy. I'm humble before God. You can't be humble before human beings, especially in a system like this, which is a ruthless, literally murderous system in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. Hollywood is eat or be eaten.
Yeah, and you have to know who you are. You can't survive if you don't know who you are and what your competitive advantage is.
And then let's move on with some super chats. Also, speaking of super chats, we've gotten some very generous donations from Slimer Snarf on PayPal. which we are immensely grateful for. So thank you so very much for that. That's actually one way
Well,
where,
that way Google
this
doesn't get-
platform doesn't get a cut.
Yeah, I was just
30%.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate that. So yeah, you have our eternal gratitude. And
I just hope you're
also,
a pimp or something where you make all kinds of money, buddy. Because I've seen some of your super chat donations, and holy cow, my friend, you are super generous.
and they are epic. Yes, exactly. So thank you so much. Like you've supplied us with a lot of electricity and light in the darkness and coffee for making videos and everything. So thank you so much for that. That is incredible, and we couldn't do what we do without that kind of support. So thank you. And
So just to promote my non-humble thing, as we were talking, I just got an email from a project, which I was very nervous that they wouldn't like the script, and I just got an email from the producer saying, "We love the script. Now go to the next stage." So I just
Nice.
So I'm still in the game.
Oh, congratulations.
Congrats.
awesome. Very glad to hear that. Nice. Exactly. Oh, we love it when people that are here go on to do bigger and better things. So that's absolutely awesome. And then we have Cynical Lindsay, who says for $9.99, it'll be interesting to see if KK tries to throw Headland under the bus. The latter is Harvey Weinstein's former assistant, and there's no doubt in my mind that she's got legacy ruining dirt on KK. Kamran, what do you think about that? Is Leslie Headland safe, or is she next to go?
Well, Leslie Headland is safe in the sense that she is the keeper of secrets, right? She's the keeper of secrets for Mr. Weinstein, and she is the keeper of secrets for Miss Kennedy. So she's put herself in a position of that Kennedy put herself in, right? She was the keeper of secrets for Spielberg and keeper of the secrets for all these other players, and now Miss Headland is now the next generation of that. So the funny thing is, we're literally watching the rule of two play out. Right, the apprentice then takes out the master. We're watching it play out, right? Ms. Headland, I don't think is loyal to Kathleen Kennedy. She's loyal to herself, right? And so Ms. Kennedy's out. Ms. Headland's got all the goods, right? And so I think Ms. Headland's going to be the next stage. God bless her.
Always true. There are a master and an apprentice.
Yeah. It's God bless her. God bless her.
And that is why I always say, like, wait with popping the champagne till you see who's next. And I'm not saying like that as a threat. I'm just like saying that as a general thing. Never celebrate too early, and it's true for everything. But especially like when it comes to any kind of change in management, no matter which level, no matter how much you thought you may have disliked what was before. No guarantee that what comes
there's
next.
There's a good sports story I'll share with you about that, Andre, at some point.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, right now? Well, you talk about celebrating too early.
How long?
Well, okay. The very short version is that 1986, the Boston Red Sox were going to win their first World Series. Bob Costas is in the locker room. Everything's covered in plastic. They have the champagne out. They have the trophy there. The New York Mets start to climb back in the game. So he says to the producer, hey, listen, what happens if the Mets come back and win it? You get the hell out of there as fast as you can. The ball infamously goes through Bill Buckner's feet. The Mets win. They break down everything. There's no trace of a celebration that was ever going to happen. The Mets come back and win the next game. So, yeah, don't count your chickens. That's the lesson, guys.
Yeah.
That's the very short version.
Exactly. And then we have Team Worm, who says, if Favreau ultimately assumes a position of authority at Lucasfilm, it would have been KK's idea all along. See how that all works out. Yes, indeed. This was the point that we made earlier. Like this way, she's like able to try to get the story out there that she's the mastermind behind it all. And then Stephen Otten says, rest in peace, Helen McCrory of Peaky Blinders and the Harry Potter films fame. So she apparently is no longer with us. And yes, rest in peace.
Yeah, God bless her. She left a big legacy. She left.
52 years old, not gone too soon.
So young.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, our thoughts to her family and to her close ones and to her extended fans. And then HyperGyver2 says, if Hidalgo is Grimo Wormtongue, then who are the 9, specifically the king or the B something king? That's censored, so I can't really see it.
So you mean as the nine were the 9 human ring bearers that had become ring wraiths,
probably. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a weak sauce version of the 9s are the rest of that story group, right? That's the story group, right?
That's what I'm thinking too.
The 9s were great. The 9s were great epic warriors, but it's weak sauce. That's all we got.
That's the Kennedy faction right there. Pretty weak sauce. And Dark King wonders, choosing Reddit for the... Yeah, no, we got this one already, because now we're going through some that we've already took when they were on screen. Yes, and then GEC812 says, Kamran, have you heard about the truth of rumor that Pablo insulted Gina's sister when she got COVID? Gina told him off and Pablo went and whined to KK. Is this something that you're familiar with? Have you heard any of these rumors?
I mean, I've heard that. I don't know, did that come directly from Gina or is that a rumor? I will say that if it happened, it just shows absolute low class, and regrettably, it fits into the image Mr. Hidalgo has created for himself with his low class behavior on Twitter, and especially with regard to what he did to Star Wars Theory, degrading a fan's beloved sincere emotions. It fits the kind of low class character he has shown. I just hope I don't know Hidalgo. I'm sure he knows who I am now and despises me, but I know what he's allowed to happen under his watch, and I do think he's in serious trouble when Miss Kennedy is gone. If Doomcock correct that she is gone, and I hope he learns from this, and whatever career he can salvage after this, that he learns to find his humanity again, because I think whatever track he was on has pushed him away from whatever good character he once had. Because I don't like what I've seen.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Tiberius Monk says, Hail Midnighters, hail Kamran. When I saw Kamran on, I said, by the power of Grayskull. Also, Star Wars on film is dead to me until Kennedy leaves. The Empire of Dreams has fallen and needs true leadership. Indeed.
Well, if Dan Cybeck, again, we are here and we're not with Doomcock channel around. Dan Cybeck in the chat just said, I guess he's watched the video. He said the Doomcock is reporting not only is she out, that this leak that we are discussing was the plant that was set in purpose when she knew she was out, is what I was suggesting. That when she figured out she was out, this plant was set in motion to make it look like she's transitioning of her own free will and not being ousted. Again, we don't know the truth, but certainly that's been my opinion, and that is allegedly what Doomcock is reporting right now.
Well, that's again, that would only further your reputation as the Nostradamus, because we made that prediction minutes before Doomcock's video came out.
Well, the one thing that I have discovered is because I've been out of the club and I've had my butt kicked for 20 years and still managed to achieve some kind of career, right? It's made me perceptive of human nature and has made me understand why people do the things that they do, even though the things seem to be irrational. Because you would think that someone, this is the best script. Oh, we're not going to greenlight the script. We're going to greenlight that script. That's garbage. Why would they do that? Oh, it's because of this, and this reasons. You begin to understand politics and human nature, right? And the Machiavellian nature of this town. So to whatever extent I've been Nostradamus, just because I've had 20 years of watching people make bad decisions that don't seem rational, right? And then having to analyze why that happened. So that's why I'm able to, I think, to see what's coming, because the same players are behaving the way they always do.
Exactly. There we have it. Your reputation as Nostradamus remains further, it doesn't remain the same, it is further strengthened. And then moving on, because we have some other very cool comments here. Valiant Renegade says, for $20, Ahsoka appears slated to create a new Star Wars timeline/universe. Production is late this year, in part, I think, because Favreau doesn't want KK interference. She is negotiating retirement terms now. Indy 5 is a bargaining chip.
I agree.
This comes from a Valiant Renegade, yeah. And Mecha J says, hashtag never release the Abrams cut. That's how well that went down. On that note, Fredrik Haugen, a Norwegian in Swedish exile, says, who benefits from the Reddit article? And I think the question should be who was intended to benefit from it.
That's the right question.
Yeah. Who actually benefits and who was intended to benefit. Those, I think, are two different things. Because as it is right now, like this leak, everyone saw right through it right away. Yellow Flash, he had a video about how it was all about pushing the Abrams cut. We had a video yesterday about how this seems very specifically aimed at clearing Katee of all wrongdoing, and we are here picking it apart with you right now. So this Reddit leak, which was, since it's on Reddit, obviously is like intended for the audience in like our general area, and it seems to have failed with that. So Kamran, who benefited from this in reality, no matter who what was the intention?
You know who benefited from it? Midnight's Edge benefited from it. Doomcock benefited from it. See, these clowns don't understand. They are actually strengthening the people they see as their adversaries, right? By doing this, by doing such a piss poor job of whatever the propaganda was, whether it's KK propaganda or JJ propaganda, by doing such a piss poor job, all they've done is elevated the prominence of sites like this that are able to analyze and break down what's actually happening.
Exactly. That's a very, very good point.
You know, and the other thing too, before we go on, I always keep saying, let's just say if we didn't exist, if there was no Doomcock, no Yellow Flash, none of us existed, Star Wars would still suck just as badly. I mean, even if we go away tomorrow, this is what you're left with, geode.
Well, and I brought this point up, I think, the other day. I don't remember if it was on this show or another one, but like, a lot of the things that I started to notice were going wrong. I didn't get into this because of the whole politics thing. It was all because of, I just didn't like anything that was coming out. And I knew there was something not right about it. And I started to pinpoint certain things. But now looking back on it, of course, with hindsight, I can clearly see where it all began. And it went farther back than Ghostbusters. Went way farther back than that. Of course, part of it's in Fan 4-Stick. Part of it was even in the Ninja Turtles film. You know, I bitched about the story being destroyed, but when you stop and think about why was the story destroyed, it was so they could put the female lead in every single place they fucking could. That was the whole push. It was more about the female lead than it was the actual fucking Ninja Turtles, which is the title of the movie. I mean, like, at least the original film had a great way of balancing, yeah, we get it. It's a movie about talking turtles. You got to have some humans in there. But it didn't feel like the April O'Neil show like it did in the 2014 movie. And the same thing kept going with, and I brought up the point again and again with Fan 4-Stick, and there's more things supporting that argument now, that the whole reason they had a biracial sister and brother in there is because they could not have a biracial couple on screen, because they knew there was a lot of people who would raise flags about that, or places like China that wouldn't show the fucking movie. So there's all these stupid things that started to come into it. And you look back and realize it all has to do with these identity politics. But at the same time, it shows how disingenuous they are, because it really is all about the money in the end. Now, if they'd really actually just cop to it and do what they used to do in Hollywood, I don't give a shit. I'll take a ton of crappy movies just to get a few good ones like we used to, as opposed to this shit. Sorry.
I got to hand it out to the late Joel Schumacher. He said, you know what? I made a bad movie, made some bad choices. I'm sorry. I would love to make it up to you. He owned up to it. He didn't say, it's a
Not only did he own up to it, he flat out said it was all about the toys, Rob. I admit it. The studio pushed me, and it was all about the toy companies wanting all this crap and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he laid it all out there. He didn't lie about any of it.
Simon Kinberg actually did sort of apologize for Fantastic Four, and I don't know what he's doing these days, but he must have got talking to. You don't apologize to these people, Simon. So
Well, I want to develop what Tom said. Actually, he's right. This was coming for some time, and I've stated that it accelerated with the election of Mr. Trump. That became sort of like this earthquake shockwave through Hollywood that accelerated a process that had already begun. But the tragedy of the process, you talk about me being Nostradamus, for the first 10, 13, 14, 15 years of my career, I was pushing script upon script with strong female leads because they interest me. My novels are all female leads, right? And all my scripts tend to have female leads. They're interesting. For someone who I think anyone who's watched me knows I wouldn't be defined by modern third wave feminism. That's not how anyone would call me a male feminist, right? And yet all my scripts have consistently had female leads because the female mind and the journey fascinates me as a man, right? And for the first decade of my journey as a screenwriter, I kept being told there's no market for women leads. There's no market for women leads. There's no market for women leads. And then I started watching that suddenly they kept saying there's no market for women leads. But then they started doing what Tom is describing, that the female character would be pushed forward. And I realized they still don't believe there's a market for women leads, but now they're doing it for political reasons. And then I would be like, well, what about my script here with a female lead, and which actually has a strong, complex character, right? They're like, no, they don't actually want that. They want, Ray, which is an undeveloped female character, right? And so here I am with all these strong female leads that are complex, were profound, sitting there, and people are like, there's no market for it. Now there is a market for it, but we don't want that kind of in-depth storytelling. And third, you're a man, so you can't write women. Like, okay.
Well, what they really want actually is just a female lead by just gender only.
Correct.
That's the only thing that they want to push, because there's been strong female leads in other movies. Like I know for me, like with Sarah Connor in The Terminator, not the bastardization that they reboosted. You had Ripley in Aliens, you had Lara Croft. You had these strong female characters, but they weren't marketed solely that they were female. They had a story. They had, legitimate reason for being there. And it was great. But now it's just like, we're just going to slap a woman, say it's just female led, female, check the box, whatever it is. And you have to like it. If you don't like it, you're an istinophobe.
Right.
And the female can't have any characterizations beyond being female.
Oh, absolutely
right.
not.
And can't be traditionally feminine. Let's also put that out there as well, because there is a war on femininity out there in Hollywood. You can't be feminine. You can't be classically beautiful. That's a problem.
Right. And I said I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Cameron.
No, I was saying, I said this on Lorena's channel, which is that I think women like to see classically beautiful women even more than men.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, who are you doing this for? And the one thing that I've noticed here, and I'm going to say something controversial, which which I'm hearing more and more of, casting couch is back in full swing, even during the pandemic, right? Yeah, and you hear nothing more about Me Too from any of these people anymore, right? And that whole game is back in full swing and even more aggressive now, right? And what I'm actually hearing now is you're having casting couch with the Me Too thread over it. Casting couch, okay, now give me the role or I'm going to claim something else, right? What happened between us. That's how, and this town is talking about female roles when it has this degrading culture that is now back in full swing with this ugly energy to it. It is what it is.
Indeed, it is. So yeah, all of those promotions, campaigns, social movements, it was all for naught. It was all for naught.
Well, it's all about transforming the rest of the culture. This whole subversive agenda, people who talk about subverting expectations, they don't want to subvert their own expectation. Their own expectation is, I'm going to be at the top of the system. And the best way for me to do that is not to actually, because it's not about talent. I'm in the club, and the best way for me to do that is to subvert the culture so I don't have any competition. Is people are confused, lost, mediocre, with no sense of direction. I get to be as mediocre as I want, and I remain at the top. Those who promote subverting culture do so to hold others down and keep themselves in power. They're not subverting their own culture. They're subverting other people's cultures. Hollywood culture is not subverted. That's why I brought up Me Too, and that's why I brought up the casting couch. That culture has not been subverted. It remains as ugly as it always has been, but they are attempting to change your culture so that you never challenge them.
Exactly. And moving on.
Well, that actually goes with things I've said many times over, and that is that, you ask any normal person who's not in Hollywood, corporate America, or anywhere like that where money is still a major thing, and it's like, sexual harassment and all these other problems they have in Hollywood just aren't a problem, because that's just not the way the world works. We all knew that years ago. The only places these things are still a problem is those places. Basically Hollywood, corporate America, and Washington.
Yeah. Okay.
Very true. Rob, you had some other engagement?
Yeah. Actually, I gotta run out. I gotta take care of a few things. But Cameron, always good talking to you, man.
Please, if you can, Rob, do that thing real quick before you leave.
I will. I'll see. Yeah, I'll
awesome, because I'm actually been working on that the whole show.
Jeez, you're multitasking.
Yes, I have.
I am horrible at. So, all right, Lorena, always good seeing you. Andre, boss
Likewise,
man,
Rob.
hold down the fort. Everybody in the chat, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. I will catch you all next time. Onion rings, quicksand porn, all the good stuff.
Karate.
Exactly.
Karate. See ya.
But we're not going anywhere just yet. Kamran, how long do you have?
I have about realistically about half an hour, and then I have a pretty hard out. I got to get out. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right, because we're gonna have some more questions for you in the super chat. So we're just gonna run through them. Samoan Pirate says, "Screw a JJ cut. We should demand the original non-special edition trilogy to be re-released in theaters and then returned to print."
Word up.
I agree.
But you know what? The longer they wait, the more fans have become more resourceful, because I heard 4K 80 is coming along really well. 4K 77 looks gorgeous. 4K 83 looks beautiful. They ain't going to give it to us. People will make their own.
Like we're seeing with the Heir to the Empire animated stuff that's on YouTube.
Absolutely.
It's great.
And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's the fans who've actually found really good prints of Star Wars and Return of the Jedi and have scanned them themselves in 4K.
Oh my goodness, I'd love to see that.
And it does. Watching Star Wars in 4K scanned from the original film, it looks so different because they've done so much crap to the movie over the years. It doesn't even look the same. It was like being taken back to being, that true nostalgia, warmth, childhood feeling watching the film, because it just has that aura about it, but it's also pristine and beautiful at the same time. So it was just perfection.
Okay. And then we have a very good question for you here, Kamran. Lord Trinan wonders, now that the flying monkeys are aware their days are numbered and KK won't save them, think any might try to go down fighting and turn on KK?
Well, it's too late now, right? And these people are too stupid these aren't Machiavellian players. They are the tools of a Machiavellian player, right? I mean, these are pawns being run by a queen who knows what she's doing to some degree, right? But I think even she's misplayed her hand. So these people, they put their eggs in this basket, and they're all young. I mean, you look at this story group, these are young, clueless kids from a generation that's been clueless. They don't know how life works. They couldn't imagine that Kathleen Kennedy didn't actually care about the ideological stuff that she told them she cared about. They couldn't believe that Hollywood is a lie and that nobody cares about any of these things. They're just pretending to. So they kept pushing this, and now the truth is going to come out for them that they never had any support. They were tools in a game, and the game is over, and it's time for fade out for them. And so I feel bad for them. This is literally what's going to happen to an entire generation of these clueless kids in Hollywood that don't know what game they are part of and are being flushed away. Without revealing which show, I worked on a show where there were quite a few of these young kids who were given an inordinate amount of authority by the showrunner, who was also of that generation. And then the showrunner was ousted, and those kids were in serious trouble, right? Because they had made so many enemies by their behavior on that show, and their careers are now severely damaged. I've seen it with my own eyes on shows I've worked on, and it's about to happen to Lucasfilm. They're done. As I warned them, that's why they kicked me off Twitter. They're done. And guess what? I'm still here.
Yeah, and we'll see for how long they will be. Leader Boss and the Multiverse, can't see the full title here, sorry, says, I worked 25 years in the tech industry and saw the same thing happening. It is always the same. A bad CEO trying to save the reputation before going away in order to open the next opportunities. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Yeah. And Valiant Renegade says Kamran nailed it. That's exactly what's happening. KK is negotiating her retirement with these leaks, not only with Star Wars, but also Indy 5.
I think we read that one already, but
We
yeah.
read that one, yeah. And then
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, it did seem familiar. Battle Hymn 63 says this article also sounds a lot like someone is trying to pivot off the Snyder Cut. I think without the Snyder Cut, this would have been framed differently. Oh, for sure. It certainly would have. Go Big Boar or Go Home says for $10, I'm so happy to watch the live streams here on Midnight's Edge and appreciate Andre, Tom, and Rob and their work. And having Kamran on again is a real treat. Keep up the great work, my friends. And Almanuel0311 says, this is for Rob. Sorry for confusing you with Polly. Well, I'm sure it's forgiven. And House Atreides says, Kamran, just when will KK exit Lucasfilm? End of contract. What will happen to the Star Wars project she's in control of that's in production? Like, for instance, the Acolyte. Well, if the rumor, Doomcock's reporting that have come alight like only like in the last hour is anything to go by, she might not be very long for Lucasfilm indeed. But what's going to happen to the projects that she was in control of, like for instance the Acolyte?
I think it's going back to the rule of two. Ms. Headland is safe. The Acolyte's going to be okay because I've been hearing now for months that that there is some tension between Leslie Headland and Kathleen Kennedy, that Leslie wants to actually run the show the way she wants to do it. I don't know how she wants to do it. I don't know if it's going to be any good. I certainly know Miss Kennedy's idea will likely not have been any good. So the rumors that I've been hearing is that Leslie Headland has been trying to break free of the Kathleen Kennedy control, which is what the Sith apprentice does, right? Eventually they take, and so now now if indeed the master has been taken down, then the apprentice takes its place. So I think the Acolyte will continue. Whether it's good, we'll find out. But I think Leslie Headland will survive this, and God bless her, and I hope she's successful. I hope she ends up being a force for good inside of Star Wars. We don't know what her work is going to be. There's been a lot of people that have been afraid that she is going to continue the Kathleen Kennedy legacy, but from what we're hearing, she certainly has a different creative vision, and we'll find out if it's a good vision. But the other stuff, I think High Republic, if it is indeed true Miss Kennedy's out, or whenever she will be out, High Republic is dead, Geode is dead, all this garbage is dead, and all those story group people are going to start sending their resumes out.
Yeah, well, it'll be very interesting to follow going forward now. And then Servant of God 777 says, this leak is timed even more suspicious due to another Warner Media bit that has gone after fans and backed KK, getting outed by PV. I haven't seen any recent Warner Media hit piece, but there sure are many of them, and I'm sure that Anne Sarnoff and Kathleen Kennedy go to the same cocktail parties.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, none of these people are friends. They're just associates, right? So there's no friendship in this club. It is just mutual support until I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, and I absolutely.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we've never went out there and said, "Oh yeah, like Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau are like, taking swings at each other or having, verbal blowups and none of that shit." We've never said any of that. In fact, to the contrary, I've always painted the picture, at least in my mind, from what I've gotten from my sources, that she's never fucking there. Like she shows up when like George shows up or when something important is going down, but she's more than happy to take all the fucking glory for something like Mandalorian. And who the hell do you think is putting out the word out there like, oh yeah, it was her idea? She's the one who had everything to do with this show. And or the other one I love is that this show saved her job. That is the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard in my life, really, in the end. Because this show had nothing to do with her job. Her job is her contract. She's there. It's until it's over with.
it actually undermined her job because
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like,
what she was doing. Yeah.
That's why she was trying to get the narrative out there that it was her idea when everybody behind the scenes already knew that it wasn't the case. It was Bob Iger and Jon Favreau who put them together and said, "Here, Kathleen, John's got this idea." That killed the Boba Fett movie at that point then, because they're like, okay, we're going to do the Mandalorian. Well, then in turn brought back Boba Fett into a totally different situation.
Yeah. Indeed, it is.
Lorena, we're over talking you. I apologize. We'd love to hear your perspective.
Yes, please, Lorena.
Yes,
we're being the aggressive, loudmouth man, and you're being the gracious Southern woman. But let's bring some chivalry back here.
I'm like the gracious Southern woman with my eye on my work email at the same time. People are actually behaving. Do you mean with respect to the Reddit leaks, or with what's going on with KK, or?
All of it.
It's all a song and dance. Like Kamran was saying, Hollywood, these people don't necessarily like each other, but they have to work with each other. And if they have to stab you in the back to get done what they want to get done, they will. Even to the point of leaking something like out onto Reddit, not Facebook, not Twitter, not Instagram, but they go to Reddit. Reddit's kind of like a scummy place, but but again, a lot of rumors get posted there. It's like Disney rumors that get posted to the WDW Magic Forum, where WDW Pro is. That's been an open secret for years for what's going on.
Yeah.
So the fact that they dropped this out there, they wanted it to get out, but I think, like you guys were saying, it backfired. To me, it just made Kathleen Kennedy pretty much look like an idiot. I didn't have any sympathy for her before. I certainly didn't have any more after reading that. And again, I don't believe the line that there is no civil war at Lucasfilm. There is one. They're just not being obvious about telling you about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone who sat in a Hollywood meeting sees that it's people who are incredibly polite, smiling, and saying great things together while they hate each other.
You know what the joke is? The first time I moved to LA, the joke says, the difference between LA and New York. I'm like, what? They said, in New York, have a nice day. They said in New York, F you means have a nice day. In LA, have a nice day means F you.
Correct.
And that's exactly it.
And bless your heart means?
Bless your heart is the polite way of saying F you or have a nice day. Mostly the previous one, I'd say. You just can't pick. You don't want to cuss at somebody. You could say bless your heart to either empathize with someone or say that person's a freaking idiot.
Yeah, that's like, oh, bless you. Bless him, bless her. They have that in England as well, just like it's slightly different.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Generally, if it's followed by some great big statement and they go, oh, bless your heart, that means you're a complete fucking moron.
Yeah, but in the South,
you're probably special needs and I should probably just shut my mouth. Saying all that with just one line.
Yeah. Speaking of one line, we have a couple of more super chats, and some are even from for Kamran. So I want to get through them when he's still here. First, a relatively unrelated one. Sorry, Darren Serwinek says, "I'm a fool for booze, but not garbage entertainment. Here's $5 to keep this cultural Stalingrad going." Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And Lord Trinan says, "Doomcock, Midnight's Edge, Nerdrotic, Clownfish TV, Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic. All of you form a barrier to turn the tides of Hollywood."
That's true.
Yeah. Mitch Thibault says, for $20 Canadian, thank you so much. With all these leaks, I have to wonder just how many times someone in Disney or Lucasfilm corporate screamed out, just who the hell is Doomcock? Yeah, I am sure that they must wonder that. And Revcor Wonder says, simple, go to Alec Peters, make a full movie of Axanar. Yeah, he certainly showed that there are different kind of aesthetics,
or at
that
least
work
get a lot of the
better
people
than,
that worked with him. Let's put it that
yeah.
way.
Yeah, but the aesthetics, they certainly work better. We can say that the aesthetics work better than the JJ Trek aesthetics. That I think we can all agree on.
One thing I'll say that's in the chat, I want to support. People really like the term cultural Stalingrad. I like it. I think we should use it again. I think it's really cool. Like my flying monkeys, Lucasfilm flying monkeys. I coined that, and now it's now spreading. I'm seeing other people using it. But whoever the gentleman was or lady that gave us that super chat, cultural Stalingrad is what this is. We are essentially facing an invasion of aggressive ideologues, and we've trapped them in the one place they didn't expect to be trapped. And now it's just a war of attrition, breaking them down. And if indeed Miss Kennedy is out, then this is the major turning point of this entire war.
The major turning point, I think, was the Forbes article, the Forbes hit piece, and this would just follow from that. Because I'm convinced that if indeed she is out, it's because of that Forbes article, which, as we said at the time, that pushed Shapex back against the wall.
And I still believe he may have engineered it, because I think he wanted to have his back against the wall so he can still go to the club and to the cocktail parties and said, hey, I'm sorry, Katee, it wasn't personal. It was me. It was my back or yours. I'm sorry. That. I wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Yeah. And anyway, because that's the one thing that everyone in the cocktail parties will agree on. Oh, if it was you or her, then obviously you did what you had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And then RFON says again, rest in peace, Helen McRory. Indeed, went way too soon. And Dean J says for $10, hey guys, my questions for Mr. Pasha. Mad respect, dude. With movies like Nobody, Kong vs. Godzilla, and Mortal Kombat, do you think the age of good cinema is returning?
I certainly think the age of popular cinema is returning. I loved Godzilla versus Kong. Is that a good script? No, it's not a good script.
No, but it's better than
it's a great movie.
It was just fun. It was escapism, no message being preached. It was just, stuff up on screen.
We don't care about the people in a Godzilla movie.
No, you don't.
We don't care about the story. We don't care about why Godzilla is fighting Kong. We don't care, right?
No, we just want to see it.
Why are they at the center of the earth? I don't know. Okay, but they're at the center of the earth and it's cool, right? And so it is. I think we're beginning to see that because Hollywood is broke. It's broke. Last year made it even more broke, right? And so now it's, even if it doesn't want to, it has to make money. So all the garbage that was produced was coming from it was the decadent end of an empire where everyone was rich in the industry and a lot of mediocre people were being thrown lots of money to make bad films with political content that they didn't even believe. Nobody has the money to throw around for garbage. There was such an aggressive effort by the traditional media and by the traditional reviewers to lambast Godzilla versus Kong. And it failed because the audience desperately, after a year of the crap we've been through, just wants to watch a giant lizard and a monkey fight. That's all we want to watch. We just want to have fun again. We don't want to live in this crazy world that you've given us. And so that's going to be the turnaround. It's just now broke people got to make money.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have old redneck nerd says, Kamran, make a Dragonlance series happen.
I pitched all kinds of series like that. The funny thing is this. I was out pitching a great fantasy series by Guy Gabriel Kay, who's a wonderful author. If you haven't read his fantasy books, Tigana and the Fiona Var Tapestry, I was out pitching that, and then I went to all the big places that you heard of, right? And everyone's like, "There's no market for swords and sorceries and dragon." And literally 3 months after I went and failed, and I had gotten the rights to the books and everything, and they're as popular and perhaps some ways more popular than Game of Thrones had been. Game of Thrones got greenlit. And why? It's because the gentlemen involved in Game of Thrones were in the club. Mr. David Benioff is a nice guy. I went to college with him, but he was also in the club. His father is the head of the his father was the head of the New York Federal Reserve, right? His father was the president of the New York Federal Reserve. So they immediately said, "Oh, this guy's part of the club, and we got to keep him and his dad happy because that's connection to power. That's the Federal Reserve, right?" And so I've been told there's no market for swords and sorceries and popular books of fantasy, right? 3 months later, I'm like, oh, Game of Thrones. These guys with no experience in TV? Oh, HBO, and their first pilot failed. They gave them another $10 million to redo the whole pilot. That's because it isn't about the underlying thing. It's you're in the club. We got to throw you the money. That's how it works.
Yeah. Indeed.
Mhm.
And then we have Stephanie Janisek wonders, is JJ smart enough to realize any of this? What say you, Kamran?
Well, I have met Mr. Abrams. He was very nice. He's very polite and was very friendly. I have no, I actually think the man has some real talent. If you watch his original movie, his first movie regarding Henry that he wrote when he was 18 years old, and then Harrison Ford started it. Yes, he came from a rich producer family, so family was in the club. So that's how he was able to get his 18-year-old script to Harrison Ford. But it's actually a very good movie. It's a good movie that's worth watching. It's a good character drama. And then, he's gone off and become successful. And I think, in fact, perhaps a lot of the success has been a pattern of recreating other people's success, which I think is unfortunate because he's proven from his earliest stuff that he is independently creative. And I hope that he becomes more confident in that in this stage of his life and just not having to mimic other people's things. He's more than that. And he's also much wealthier and powerful than I am. So it doesn't matter what I think. So I don't think he's in any way a foolish person or a stupid person. And I love Stephanie. So God bless her.
Yes. So there we have that. And then we have Servant of God 777, goof whose name I forget, says sorry for playing Apu. John Cleese. Time for comedy on this. This man is a legend still and one we need. Indeed he is. And Dyrus says for $10, need to put Star Trek and Wars in the photo album. Time to move on. Need next Firefly. And Mark Sickre's Space Command. Use the past to build the future. And then Bogue says, Kamran, any insight into any deals Hollywood is doing with Japanese IP holders, since Netflix seems to be getting more influence over anime studios?
Well, I'm not as knowledgeable about anime, so I don't want to make up things I don't know. I do know that the Japanese filmmakers are gaining a lot of power as more and more people in Hollywood realize this whole generation is into anime, right? My niece, who just, she's 17 years old, she's been an anime fan since she was a little kid, right? And so this whole generation is into that. And, the Hollywood is slow because it's not in the club. Like the Japanese are over there, I just make Godzilla movies, right? And the funny thing is now, I've been hearing that we don't know if there's going to be another Godzilla movie in the current franchise because Toho, the Godzilla rights holder in Japan, which is the studio behind the original Godzilla movies, is seeing the massive success of Godzilla again and wants to go back to making Japanese Godzilla movies. And it doesn't want to necessarily license this out to Hollywood anymore. So Japan is waking up and realizing what it has to offer.
Indeed. Tom, do you have something to add to that? Because that's something that I know he's working on.
What was the original question?
Anime, but and if that's getting more powerful with Netflix and everything, but and then Kamran mentioned Godzilla and Toho.
Well, yeah, they've been making anime Godzilla for a while. I don't know if they're going to continue or not. That's a good question. Right now, I think everything's kind of up in the air right now. I'm sure there's some really hardcore negotiations going on between Toho and Legendary. We've got a video coming up about this. I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to spoil too much of what we talk about. But yeah, I mean, Legendary, whoever's idea it was to wait until after Godzilla vs. Kong to negotiate any further contracts with Toho, it put Legendary in the best fucking possible position right now. So, but again, they've been able to do this animated thing for a while. They'll probably continue to. Netflix has always encouraged a lot of animation, so I wouldn't doubt if they'll continue. I mean, I guess if that's what they're asking.
Well, and I want to add, because you mentioned Legendary, I've had several meetings at Legendary in the past year, and I'm very, very, very impressed with the executives I've met there. You know, we often writers grumble about executives, but the people that I met are really smart. They're young people, but they seem to really know where the market is going, and they just want to entertain people. And I was just delighted by the vibe that I felt at Legendary. And so, you know, we saw what they did with Godzilla versus Kong. That's why I'm very, very hopeful for Dune. You know, there's a lot of fear that Dune's going to be woke and whatever. You know, the people I met seem too smart for that. They just want to make the audience happy. They want to make money. That's my impression of Legendary.
Yeah, indeed, I agree with that. They seem to know what they are, to know what they're doing.
Yeah,
they absolutely do. So everything that I have heard there certainly suggests that that's going to be a good movie, but we'll see. And then Nelson Charetta says, KK out. Ding dong, the witch is dead. And Demudgny says, hail. Doesn't matter who put the leak out. Star Wars is 66th. And Servant of God says, geode action figure. Step 1, buy rocks from Home Depot. Step 2, get googly eyes from Craft Store. Step 3, profit, because it's cheap as heck to make. You know what? You could do it even cheaper if you alter step 1 from buying rocks from Home Depot to like picking them up in your garden. But that's me. And Troy Pacelli says, I just want to hear this in Andre's voice. From hell's heart I stab at thee. For hate's sake I spit my last breath at thee. Dedicated to KK. The last millennial. Yeah, what was that, Lorena?
Oh, I said that was good, Andre.
Oh, thank you. I do try, and for those that want to become members, I do.
No, Khan, please tell us how you really feel.
But yeah, as I was saying, and for those that want to have more like that, I do readings of Norse mythology for members. So yeah, if you want to be a Crom level member, then go check that out. And then we have the last millennial says, Tom, did you get a new TV? That's just a quick yes or no, because there's a question for comment on here too. Tom, you're muted.
Tom, yeah. Is Tom still with us?
Oh, I didn't even hear the question. I'm sorry.
Did you get a new TV?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know I did.
Yep. And
it broke me. And
yeah, I could have asked you. And then the next one is for Kamran.
Okay.
Will it actually be Favreau to run Lucasfilm? He's a director who likes to direct, so wouldn't it be someone else?
Well, I guess we're going to, if Doomcock is right, we're going to find out. It may very well be that also remember, a lot of this is about saving face. To put Jon Favreau as the head of Lucasfilm is a direct slap on Kathleen Kennedy's face and proves the Civil War narrative that they're denying, right? And they're already denying the Civil War narrative. And if it is indeed true that this Reddit leak was put out as part of her retirement package, then part of that narrative is going to be there was never any Civil War. They're friends. This was all these dumb flying monkeys. Get rid of them, right? And so in that situation, there may likely be an executive, a traditional Hollywood studio executive that serves the public face of Lucasfilm while Mr. Favreau continues to be its visionary force, right? He doesn't I don't think he wants a title. He just wants to do the work. And yes, he is a director. At the end of the day, he just wants to do does he want to deal with the day-to-day crap of running a company? Probably not. And so, the practical thing would be to hire a traditional executive, most likely a female executive, and give them a lot of accolades. Maybe there was that J.J. Abrams young woman that was his assistant that is in the company now. I don't think they'll give her the job, but she'll probably get a promotion. And so yeah, but I think Favreau will be the quiet winner behind the scenes, and he's too gracious to be anything else.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point right there. And then we have Tiberius Monk, who says, never bow to Hollywood. They are the producer of dreams and fantasies, while simultaneously are among the biggest hypocrites of low character on Earth. And House Atreides says, sounds like the Reddit article is in response to KK being stripped of power in Lucasfilm and is close to being completely out, according to Doomcock.
We'll find out.
It really does sound like that. So it'll be very interesting to find out what the case is there. So I look forward to checking in with some people that I know to be involved with that. So yeah, it'll be fun to see. Okay. And then we have, just 1 second here. I'll refresh because it crashed here a little second. Michael Millard says, I just watched the Doomcock video. There is evidence, but largely rumor for now. That being said, it's not wrong from what we've heard. Her promotion pending. So yeah, it'll be very interesting.
I think someone said in the chat that hey guys, it's a rumor. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what Doomcock reports. That's what his channel is famous for, and he always says add a grain of salt. And I think we here also on Midnight's Edge say add a grain of salt. And these are indeed rumors because none of this is. Even if Jon Favreau called Doomcock and told him that's happening, he's not going to present it as that, right? He has to present it. To protect his sources, he has to present it as a detached thing, but the information is out there, and both Midnight's Edge and Doomcock have consistently been right.
Yeah, and this is something that I, by the way, can 100% confirm to be accurate. Many of the times when we say rumor, take with grain of salt and all of that jazz, we say it because we have to. We know it's not. We know it's true.
Yeah.
But
it's a way to preserve relationships.
Yeah, there are like some things that we just can't say the full truth on. We can't say everything we know, and that's the same thing with Doomcock. He's going to have to say that some things are rumor, although he knows incredibly well that this ain't rumor. This is horribly, horribly true.
And you guys know. It's professionals who when to report something. Both you and Doomcock don't report things from random emails. You vet your sources and you decide this is something that I'm going to put my credibility on, even if I add the disclaimer of rumor.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it is.
I will wind down in a couple of minutes. So, is there anything else that?
Yes, I will go through those directed specifically for you here. We have House Atreides says, take a bow, Kamran. Everything you said has come true. Indeed, it has.
Yeah, like I said, it's from watching this town and seeing human nature over 20 years and not caring anymore because I've already figured out that the bubble doesn't want me, the club doesn't want me, but the fun of it is I'm watching the club crumble. So I'm watching it crumble. So it doesn't mean I don't care. I'm watching it crumble. So I'm like, see y'all later, suckers. I'm still here.
And Hypergiver 2 says the Forbes hit piece is more like an attack by the Night Witches than a nuke. It was fast, silent, efficient, and literally sent Lucasfilm into a panic. Well, it certainly did that.
They didn't see it coming. It was like a shot to the head. They were like, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah. And then let's see if there's any other direct questions.
And we should actually say this. We talk about Forbes being the catalyst. Gina Carano is the catalyst. She's the hero in here. I mean, she remained dignified throughout all of that. She stood her ground. She immediately went on a counterattack without having to. She just warned, I have enough information to destroy all of you. That was enough to scare the shareholders into action. She didn't have to do any of it. She just had to lay out that she's got the cards, right? And it's Gina Carano that we have to honor for this, because she had the incredible dignity to survive that assault that went over a year, that ended in this horrifically humiliating exit, and she never bowed to them, and now they're bowing to her.
Exactly. And then there's a nice one right here in Kathleen's defense. Let's see if I can find it again, because I saw it here. Where was it? Yeah, here. Sean the Movie Man 71 says, Kamran, all the negativity about Kathleen Kennedy, you must admit that she was excellent in that classic film playing the Green Lady in The Wizard of Oz.
I'm not going to give you a clippable comment.
And Roger H says,
you my pretty and your little dog too.
I'm just picturing that man.
and Roger H says, can we please get a Nostradamus emoji for Kamran?
Is there a Nostradamus emoji? I'm not familiar with one.
There isn't one, but he's requesting that we make one.
I fucking knew it one. That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, we can do that then. We can do Kamran as Nostradamus, because now we have 2 more emojis, because we have gotten sufficient new members to qualify for that. So
you can use me as an emoji. Sure, that'll be fun. Why not?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, we'll make that happen. And with that, I think that we have gone through the comments mostly directed at you, at least the ones that I have seen, unless someone popped up while I was looking at the classic ones that I could no longer get up on screen. But I think that we got the questions for you. So I know that you have another engagement.
Yes.
So with that, I just want to thank you for coming to join us, sharing your insights once again and your interpretation of the events that are unfolding. And they really turned out to be prophetic, because the things that you said were likely happening, as per Doomcock, transpired while you were here. So that's
can I share with you a mystical thing to end this on? Now, those of you know that I'm a Sufi mystic, right? The mystics of Islam are Sufis, and so mystics of all types have strange paranormal things. So this is the part where half the audience is like, this guy's talking about weird psychic stuff, but I want to share this with you. So one of my Sufi spiritual teachers, about a decade ago, I was complaining to him. I was like, man, I'm struggling so hard. I keep getting my ass kicked by this town, right? I keep seeing this club like lock me out, right? And promote people that don't know what they're doing. And he said to me, oh, don't worry about it. They have the beginning, and they won't have the end of the journey. Your beginning was hard, and then they're all going to collapse, and they'll be out of your way, and then the end will be very good for you. So I'm beginning to see my Sufi master's prediction come true.
There you go. That's very, very exciting to hear.
And on that note, also, it's apparently Gina Carano's birthday, so God bless Gina Carano.
Happy birthday, Gina!
Again, this is something also to like.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
With everything conspiring here.
So Lorena, I know you guys follow each other on Twitter. We used to follow each other when I was on Twitter. So please give her my happy birthdays. I'll try to send her something on Instagram, and hopefully she'll see it. But she's a wonderful, wonderful person.
Oh, I most certainly will.
Anything good has come out of the last few years of Star Wars is that Gina Carano entered all of our lives in a new way, and she's such a blessing. So happy birthday to her.
Yes, happy birthday to her.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, Kamran, again, thank you for joining it. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and we look forward to having you on again, I hope very, very soon, to discuss.
One day you're not going to do 9 a.m. Pacific time, my friend. One day you're not going to do 9 a.m. Pacific time.
Well, I'm sure we're going to do like some emerging breaking things that are going to be like later and stuff. But until then, we really appreciate you breaking the sleep cycle to come and share stuff with us. That is really, really cool. And especially today, with in between Doomcock's video and this live stream, I'm pretty sure it will not have been the best day in Lucasfilm track history, let's say.
Looks
And
like
I'll find
Lorena
my way back
also
on
has to leave us as well. So
Yeah, I do.
Well, so thank you all. Thank you, Andre, as always, Tom. And Lorena, you're like my spiritual sister in the journey. So I'm delighted that this is what brought us all together. So thank you all for your time.
of course.
Likewise.
Take
Take
care.
care, Cameron.
Guys, God bless. Take care. Peace.
Yes. All right, and with that, we're gonna move on with the rest of the super chats.
Okay, I'm gonna dip out here too
All
as
right.
well.
Yeah.
All right, but thanks again.
But
for
Lorena,
inviting me.
thanks for joining us. Again, it's always a pleasure to have you join. Everyone, check out Lorena's channel. Check her out also every Monday on Toxic Femininity. Plus the odd live stream here, stream beyond that. You never know when you might pop up on Midnight's Edge.
Absolutely, absolutely. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Please do hit that like button, and you guys have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Always a pleasure being on.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Yes, all right, and then back to super chats. We were at, let's see, keeps on going back and forth. Robert says Doomcock just dropped a bombshell coming out of Lucasfilm, and Roger H says can we please get the Nostradamus emoji? Yeah, we got that one. Michael, the Tom, can we get on Nostradamus emoji? Tom is busy, it appears.
I don't see why not.
Yeah. No, I'm sure we can get on.
You
that.
muted my mic for some reason.
Okay, yeah. And then we have, let's see, Michael Dietsch says a lot of the things we've seen from the Hollywood Cool Club is fairly typical of any big corporation politics. And Brimstone Prime says not Star Wars related, but what are the thoughts on the pending lawsuit over the Predator? Tom, have you followed that? Have you seen what that's about?
I sent you that story. I haven't really got to read through it all. I mean, I got to peruse it a little bit, but basically, the guys who wrote the original script called Hunter, I believe it was, are trying to go back and get the rights to Predator in that 35-year deal with rights where you can go back and get the rights if you're the sole creator of something. And of course, Disney's trying to have it dropped and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think Disney's got much of a case here unless they can pull something out of their sleeve. I don't know.
There's plenty precedent in the original writer's favor here of creators taking their properties back. Like we've seen it with the Terminator.
Yep.
We've seen it with
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, we've seen it there. Of course, no good came out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I brought it up a few times that there's I think they have now, but I even pointed out like Wes Craven's family could do it for Nightmare on Elm Street. Especially now that Bob Shea ain't got nothing to do with New Line, they should. But anyway, there's just I have a feeling that these guys have something to stand on, and I don't think, unless I haven't read the original script, but unless there's some extreme differences, I should say, in between the two, then no, I don't foresee Disney having much of a case here. Yeah, no, that is. I think that the original writers, they have a very, very strong case right here. So they may be losing. The rights to Predator very, very soon. And we have, and they might want to fight it because we have heard rumors that Disney wants to put out plenty Star Wars 2, obviously, but plenty Predator and Alien product content out there.
whether it be movies or TV series, they want to put that out there. They just started publishing Alien comics, not Predator just yet. But still, you got to imagine that losing Predator would be something of a blow to them, because that is one of the bigger things in the Fox catalog, isn't it?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. I mean, if you don't count Star Wars initially, then yeah, it's one of Fox's bigger properties besides Alien. Really, they don't have X-Men anymore. Technically, I mean, as far as their original properties, that's the topmost of the popmost, as I guess you would call it, with their franchises. Unless you can think of something else that I'm not thinking of offhand.
Not right away, no. So moving on from there, Cisco Kid says, if KK is gone, will this begin the purge of other woke-infested IPs? You never know. There's a very good chance. I mean, Star Wars was one of the big ones. Like, if that falls, that's going to be a big blow to the entire woke thing. But let's see who comes in next. Because this is what I always say. You should never celebrate by someone being pushed out. You have to see what comes there instead. When that is to your liking, that's when you show them, when you pop the champagne.
Right. And that's why I keep reminding people about what's going on with Star Trek is like, yeah, it may appear that Kurtzman's on the way out, but it also looks more like Akiva Goldsman is trying to insert himself even more. So.
And remember, he was the guy who directed the Picard finale. You know, that worst TV ever, like that horrendous thing. That was him. Yeah. And he's done so many bad stuff. He wrote Batman and Robin. He did the stupid like crossbow thing in Constantine. I mean, that's not the sign of quality right there.
No, the only good thing we have to go on with him is that he doesn't really seem to give much of a shit about the whole identity politics thing.
Well, let's hope that he doesn't fake it for his friends in the club.
Well, and that's the thing is we heard there was a lot of points of contention between him and JJ about this, and I'm assuming one of the main things would be that two of the main stars are men and not women. I mean, and that's probably one thing that really kind of rubbed everybody the wrong way. Not only that, white men. So, because Strange New Worlds is just full of white men. So we'll see how that rolls. Then again, they'll probably make Rebecca remain like the main focal point you watch.
Yeah. And then we have... let's see where we were. Oh, here, yeah. Dean J says, just one more. LMO for feminists to have their cake and eat it too is the catalyst character. Why are writers allergic to this archetype? Okay, LMO for feminists to have their cake and eat it too is the catalyst character. Why are the writers allergic to this archetype, the catalyst character? I'm not enough into writing to follow that. Yeah, unfortunately, Kamran, the professional writer, just left us. So sorry about that. We'll have to bring in Script Doctor or something to get some better thoughts on that. Then Gran Wasu 42 sent us a little boxing doggy super sticker. And Mr. Plague Doctor said the end is near. Raise your glasses, everyone. Miguel Hernandez says, I had signed up for Paramount Plus, but I cancelled after Viacom signed the recent corporate political statement. I made sure to tell them why I did. Good, very good. Whenever you cancel someone, make sure you communicate why explicitly, because then you have voted, and only then. Dr. Idiot says, in regards to Star Wars, apathy is dead. Fear Sundown says, ironic they want a 4-hour cut when the biggest issue was its length and poor focus. A longer version would be exponentially worse. if that is possible. Obviously, in reference to the Abrams cut, which we'll never ever see. Frager Hoskin says, why can't Disney get the same writers from Star Wars video games to write the movies? Most of the video games have much better storylines. Well, they could if they wanted to, but under Kathleen Kennedy, there hasn't been any will for it. You have like your own club of ideologues that she's working with, and the game writers aren't among them. Hypergiver 2 says there is no war in Ba Sing Se, which must be a reference to something that went straight over my head, but if there's no war there, then cool. And Mr. Native Knight says, in terms of the rumor, I want to have a toast ready if it turns out to be true. What's a good Hollywood drink out there to celebrate? Thank you all so much for your coverage on Star Wars. Oh, well, thank you for watching. Tom, do you have any recommendations for good Hollywood drinks?
Martinis? I don't know. What the hell do they drink anymore? Probably some fruity shit. I'm not much of a drinker, so I'm the wrong guy to ask. Rob would have been a great one to have for that. Like, Rob's even... Like, if he had his druthers, he'd probably even start, like, Midnight's Edge Brewery. Like... and talk just about like drinks and stuff. Like, because when we did a trivia thing, he had a category that was all about famous drinks and movies and shit. So it's like, dude knows his drinks. We got vodka. Well, you got to mix something with it. Cosmopolitan. That seems very 70s or prior, or 40s actually. Wow, a children's one. Wow. Now you guys are getting dark. Fruity shit. Yeah, that's what I said, Doug.
I should be drinking absinthe. I'll tell them that.
Absinthe? Well, yeah, you'd probably be a better Tom Collins. Yeah. You'd probably know better than me. What's your choices?
No, I'd go with an absinthe. I'd go with an absinthe because that's a real freaking right drink there. Beyond that, there's no end of drinks. Like, well, a sweet one that I like myself is called Big Apple. I don't know if you have that outside of Norwegian borders, but that's one of my favorites. And then, of course, you have like the classic ones like Piña Colada and loads of different things. So whatever's your fancy. But I'd recommend absinthe. Many in Hollywood, those that don't drink that already, they certainly should. Yeah, or vodka. We'll go a long way with that. Or cognac. No, actually cognac. Cognac, that's a good celebratory drink for something like that. And moving on from the drinking talk, Bogue says, follow-up. I know Warner has their hands in the One Punch Man movie. Who has their hands in the Gundam live-action movie? I have no clue. Tom, do you have a clue?
No, not off. I got yelled at for misinterpreting what Gundam and Macross and all that shit was the other day. I ain't answering that one. Sorry.
Yeah. So Bogue, I'm afraid we're gonna disappoint you for the final follow-up. Who in Hollywood is using Studio Trigger to infect the anime industry with woke garbage? Because I've heard disturbing things. Again, no clue. Sorry. Like
And Bogue says it was actually Cameron. Sorry about that, we missed it. Sorry. I wish I knew more about anime. So
yeah. On that, I plead complete ignorance. And then Glib Facsimile says, can you tell Doomcock to stop spreading anything he reads online as a leak? As if anything he proposes is legitimate. Glib, I will tell him you said that, and then I will say on behalf of myself, awesome job, keep on doing exactly what you're doing, and you're doing fantastic, and you're making a real difference. So how about I tell him that? Because that's exactly what I'm going to do. But thank you for the donation. And then we have Bogue clarifying that they were for Kamran. Well, thank you for the donation. And sorry that we just missed him. And then we have, I just have to refresh here for 1 second. Sorry about that. Amazing when that happens. It was from Stephanie Janisek. Just yeah, and then it wants me to verify that I'm really me. Oh, that's so amazing! Thank you so much for that, Google. I really appreciate having to log in and verify that it's me. Can I now come back? Yes, there I came back again. Stephanie Janisek, Smuggler's Cantina, says, I've got Coleco Rose's Bubbly for when KK's gone. Yeah, you see there, that's a nice posh drink right there. And then we had David Ruiz, who says for $50 Mexican, just wanted to hear Andre try to say this. And then there's some Spanish things. So what the hell is this now? So it looks to be like some nice quotes from Blood In, Blood Out. Que chinga a su madre. That's one. And
we can really use Paulie right about now.
Yeah. Is Paulie here?
I don't know.
And the other one is, I have to try with this. Se va a hacer o no se va a hacer a la carnita asada. Skål midnight. I'll try that one more time. I think I can do better. Se va a hacer o no se va a hacer la carnita asada. I would have to hear it to try to do better. I know a little bit of Spanish, but I'm not a master in it by any chance. And here we have Paulie, just as I finished. Hey, Paulie, how did I do?
Great. What happened?
Okay. No, I was asked to read a couple of choice lines in Spanish.
Oh,
yeah, I'm gonna put them in the private chat so that you can translate them for me and let me know if I really screwed up in reading them.
well, I mean, looks like the chat says you did great.
Okay, well, fantastic. Glad to hear it. Wonder what I said.
Oh yeah, let me see. Let me get to this.
I'll put it in the private chat here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. How's it going?
Yeah, we're good. Good. We're better than.
I'm pretty sure one of the
Lucasfilm.
things you said was carne asada.
Yeah.
Speaking of the new hit single in Espanol is Tom's single, so that's going up the charts on
Nice.
Midnight's Edge Espanol.
Very nice.
Oh, you didn't say this, did you?
Well, what does it say? I just cut out the El America bit, but so how about
who said this? Who sent this?
Well, this was let's see who it was.
Ay, Dios.
David Ruiz.
Who?
David Ruiz wanted me to say
David.
that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So how bad did I screw up?
Well, I know I didn't hear you say it.
No, well, I still did it, whether you heard it or not.
Right. It's just, I mean, que chingue a su madre.
Yeah, I stopped right there.
Okay.
Just to play it safe. I stopped it right there just to play it safe.
Well, if you said chingue, then you didn't say the verb chingar, which is.
What? No, I said it exactly as it is right there.
Oh wow, yeah. That's a bad word.
I kind of figured, but I also trust that the people in the audience will be able to laugh with it. So
yeah.
No, he said it right. Sailor Sonic says so. Yeah, I take solace in that. So also I got message from a source that is basically confirming that Doomcock's reporting is essentially on the money.
Wow.
So
we're just watching
put
it.
Through. So I haven't seen his video yet, but I just got told that it's true. It's all true. So we'll have an update on video on that relatively soon, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole video, but just the first couple of minutes, and then I was like, even that, I was like, oh, like this stuff's gonna go down this Monday. Wow. Okay.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see when we round out the show here, which will be very, very soon, because I do believe we are caught up on the super chats. Yes, we are caught up on the super chats. So, Paulie, what's going on? What should people be watching over at Latinos Land?
Well, for my little channel, we're going to have this Tuesday night coming up, filmmaker Kenneth Castillo, and he has an interesting path to Hollywood. 7 independent films under his belt, including the 2019 Counterpunch starring Danny Trejo, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that film this weekend and to do my homework with Kenneth to have a great interview. But from what I've seen, he's a very talented director in his path, and then he's coming out with a book on his path to Hollywood. It's very unorthodox as far as his director's path. So that's going on, and I think he definitely sounds like a Midnight's Edge in Espanol material in the future. Speaking of Midnight's Edge in Espanol, coming up, we're gonna do 2 streams next week with Diego Flores and Geek Tripology, Pablito. But we have like 3 big days of interviewing guests for our taped segments. And then we're also getting live guests ready for the week of Cinco de Mayo. And it's coming along. It's really coming along. I'm pretty excited. I'm very excited, actually.
Yes, very, very cool. And we will also have the channel ready for you to subscribe on very soon. New introductions are being made as we speak in 4K, as I know Tom wanted that. So yeah, we have some very, very cool stuff for you. Until then, go check out Paulie over at Latinos Land for a starter, a primer of what to expect on Midnight's Edge Espanol, which will be here with you very, very soon. With that, I would also like to say thank you to Slimer Snarf and to Nadira Martina, both of whom sent us donations on PayPal while we were live. So thank you so much for that. And with that, I'd also like to say thank you to Kamran Pasha for joining us today, and for every single one of you in the chat who were here as things got real. So that's very, very cool. So, Tom, what else should people be looking out for?
Well, hopefully in the next... I'm really close to being done here. So we got a Godzilla Kong video coming out. So stay tuned for that, folks. Hopefully that'll be up in the next 90 minutes.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Let's shoot for 90 minutes.
And we will have that for you very soon. And of course, we're going to have an update for you on this whole Star Wars situation very, very soon. Once we get to chime in with our own sources and everything like that. And Bogue says, why do you celebrate May 5th and not September 16th?
Well, Bogue, I take it you're from Mexico, which, right? That's a Mexican $20. Is that correct?
Yes. That's
so. So Cinco de Mayo is a battle that was won by the Mexican army against the French in 1862. If they did not win it, the French were advancing and would it was a known fact that they would collaborate with and support the Confederate armies during the Civil War. That never happened. That battle was very important. It's become, yes, the Battle of Puebla, correct. Puebla, 1862. And a little bit of history is just kind of like they eventually lost the war. They just won that battle, but they prevented that connection of the French and the Confederacy to happen. It's celebrated here more as a party celebratory date. It's become a nice festivity, you know. The 16th of September, though, is a 16, is the grito. That's the independence of Mexico.
Yeah, the Grito de Dolores, I think, is the full name, isn't it?
You got me on that. I just know it is early 1800s.
1810. If
it's 18. Oh, sorry about that. There's a door. If it's 1810, then that was Father Guadalupe Hidalgo that screamed the grito and saying that the revolution is here. And it didn't finish till about early 20s. And then that's they all point is that that is a real, you know, marker for Mexican history as far as 16 de septiembre is a really big deal. And that day they do the grito, and you know, from Mexico City and beyond. Yeah, it's celebrated here in the States. But Cinco de Mayo is definitely more of an American holiday. 1826 is when they finally won from Spain, and I believe that same year they abolished slavery. Under
so a year to celebrate. Absolutely.
Yeah. So those are the two, and we do. I mean, you know, both holidays are actually really celebrated here in the States.
And
everyone's chiming a little history here on Midnight's Edge at the end.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we do some history.
And Americans, we just see it as a good excuse to get drunk.
Exactly, real American here.
And as an Irishman, of Irish heritage or whatever, I say go for it, because they already took our holiday and said, "Look, it's a good reason to get drunk." That's not stereotypical or anything.
No, not at all. No,
Yeah.
It's a reason just to party.
Yeah.
You know,
And,
but we thought it would be good to kick off Midnight Edge Español that week. Órale.
Yes, exactly. That's like if you can time it with a significant event, then absolutely do that. And Grito is a little bit further off. But if we had launched in fall, then I surely would have tried to time for that.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I do believe it's time for some koalas.
You got to give me a little bit more setup than that, Andre.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain.